I don't think we're used to meeting at 5 o'clock here, so we're just wandering around like it's social hour. Good evening and welcome to the Fayette County School Board of Trustees Public Business Meeting, Public Work Session. Today is Tuesday, July 11th. It is 5 p.m., not 6:30. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, we get to have the great meeting opener, recognition for some wonderful athletes, and I thought,
awesome. I guess it's me, so okay. So I'm here to talk, I thought I was only here to talk about a night, because the track coaches were going to be here. Jason, do you have something to talk about, Chance? Perfect, I'll let Jason. So Coach Jason Cloyd is here to talk about one of our stellar 3 athletes that are in here this evening. Huge accomplishments this spring. We went 6 for 6 in sectionals with all of our spring sports. So if you don't have your t-shirt yet, I know Randy does because he was the first one to buy one. Please come and see us and get your t-shirt because we have those. But Chance is one of our seniors, baseball seniors, also football seniors. And I will let Jason Cloyd talk about why Chance is here.
Well, first of all, I'm here for Coach Thompson. He's on vacation, so as I speak, I'm speaking for Coach Thompson with myself as well. So, the one thing I want to say about Chance is it was just an honor to coach him. I'm sorry, I put my glasses on. His work ethic is second to none, especially in the off season. He's a great role model for our younger kids that are going to try to replace him. Another thing I think I want to take a chance is a student athlete. And that's most important to us. He's top 10 in his class, 4.0 student. Okay, 46 college credits. So, and going to study physical therapy. So, anyway, he broke our doubles record career and single season. He hit 433 for his high school career. First team All-State for Class 3A. So, and he's obviously an Indiana All-Star on the South team. First guy to do that for us since Zach Hubbard in 2010. So, like I said, truly an honor to coach Chance. Good story is I looked at Michael, I can't remember what game it was. I said, we took this for granted for 3 years without watching baseballs go to the backstop. And people trying to steal on us. So we're gonna have to justify it. So, moving on.
Chance, do you want to say anything? No. You're going to University of Evansville, full ride. And what's the prospect for catching next season? Is there a veteran catcher ahead of you? Or are you going to?
There's 2 older ones, but
that doesn't matter.
We'll see.
He's a great catcher and a hitter. So.
How's the knee? Better?
Yep.
Good to go.
Good.
Awesome. All right, our next one, we'll do another senior. Our next senior is Sarah Rupel. Sarah played, she's a 3-sport athlete, so she played golf for us, went to sectionals in golf. She played basketball for us, and she goes, I say for us, I didn't do any of it. And she played softball this year. So Steve, you have some facts to share about her from the season. You probably know more than I do.
I didn't come prepared. I didn't realize I was going to speak. And, she's broke several records. Stolen base record, doubles record, runs record, batting average. She just had a great year, but more important, she was our leader of her team. Great role model. So she will be missed.
She hit 2 cycles,
Oh.
and I never knew what a cycle. I'm sorry, I play softball, but I never knew what a cycle was. But a cycle basically means you hit a single, a double, a triple, and a home run all in the same game. Sarah did that twice. She did that back-to-back in sectional games. I didn't know that, okay?
Now the one she blew through a stop sign at first base because she knew she needed a double.
That works then. But we did some research, and I think doing it consecutively, like doing it as a first base, second base, third base, and then a home run, very, very, very rare to do it actually in that chronological order. But she didn't do it in the chronological order, but she was still only like 300 some people, even professionals, have been able to hit the cycle. So thought that was really awesome. Sarah is also the MVP of our conference. 2 years in a row, conference champions. And she was also an Indiana All-Star. She played for the South team, just like Chance. What was your guys' record when you played? You won both? Okay. And then Sarah then won both.
We played 3
round.
games.
You played 3.
We won 2.
Okay, 2 and 1. And then Sarah just this evening at 4 o'clock signed to go play at IWU. So she'll be playing, what's their mascot? Wildcats. So she'll be a Wildcat starting this fall. So exciting.
For none of you guys that's ever coached your own kid, that's tough on the kid and the dad. I'm going to tell you, it's a hell of a relationship you have to go through. And it's tough because you want to tell your kid at home what they did wrong, but they're not ready for that at home.
We're on the way
And
home.
then what you got, make mistakes, mom's going to tell you why you shouldn't have done it. So it is tough to coach your own kid.
And this is
Great job by both of you.
three, I mean, you've,
Do you have anything you want to say, Sarah? Because you had all kinds of words earlier.
Oh, no, I'm good.
What are you studying at school?
Nursing.
another great student too.
Chance, what are you going to study? Physical therapy.
Exciting.
All right, so those two, unfortunately, we don't get to watch them anymore. But we do have another one with us that we will get to see her for 3 more years. You want to say anything before? I know. I've already been told you're on a time limit, right? Taylor told me. So our third athlete we have here, this is Anaya Bennett. She is going to be a sophomore. So a couple of stats about Anaya. She was a member of the 4x1 meter relay team on track with J.C. Allen, Caitlin Seeley, and Kiera McKinney, who broke the 47-year-old track record with a time of 49:19. So that's one record she broke this year. Then she had some solo achievements as well. So Anaya not only broke the 100-meter dash time for the school record at 11:88, she also broke the 200-meter dash record with a time of 25:30. She did both of those at the state meet, correct? Okay. But Anaya also broke that record early in the year. So every single race she ran, she broke her own record over and over and over again. She was the sectional champion in both the 100 and 200. She was a regional champion in both the 100 and 200. She placed 5th overall at state in the 100, and then she won the 200.
Congratulations. So why did we not set it up to see if Chance could throw her out a second?
That would be. That might actually be.
Anaya, are you up for that challenge?
I guess.
Okay. Have you played baseball or softball? No? Okay, let's, can we work that out? That would be fun.
I know the IWU coach, we were talking today, he was like, she can jump how high and she can run how fast? Like, she doesn't play softball, like she doesn't. She is gonna be in the parade. I conned her into being in the fair parade. So I think it's just because I told her she could throw candy at people. And we have an athletics booth at the fair that I believe she is going to do some autograph signing one evening at the fair. What? Yeah. Yes. Okay, she's gonna shoot people with water at the fair. But she's gonna sign some autographs at the fair as well. So we have 3 more years with Anaya. She also plays basketball. Haven't got her in playing anything else yet, but exciting. So we have some really talented kids this spring.
The little ones really look up to you. The younger kids really look up to you guys. It's amazing how those little kids, they'll see you and think you guys are like world famous. So I'm glad you're out there being role models.
Thank you for
Thank you.
representing our community in Carswell High School. So great that you have. Our 2, you're not seniors anymore, you're graduates. Best wishes, we'll be following you. And then Anaya, we're looking forward to this next year. I think you'll get the 100 next season.
Hopefully.
Yeah, you will. Well, thank you. You guys do not have to sit around unless you want to sit through a work session. But I did ask Cindy to get a picture of you guys out in the hall before you leave. Thanks for
Yeah, bye. Daily dinner, down the street. Oh, good work, bye. Oh, yeah, you got softball. Let me know.
Well, that was fun. Okay, moving on. I would like to seek a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Chris, for your second. Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now's the time for public comments on agenda items. I don't think we have any. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from the executive session of 6/13/23 and the regular business meeting of 6/13/23, the personnel report, retirements, resignations, leaves of absence, etc., the approval of the June 2023 claims 65286 to 65484, and a donation of $500 from CR Rep Residential to Frazee PTO to be used to create a sensory learning garden. So I'd like to seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to action item personnel reports. Mr. Harris.
Okay, as you look at the personnel report, if you look at the previous report in the consent agenda, I just want to, sounds bad, highlight the highlights. And that is, all of the things that are highlighted there, the reason why they're highlighted, these are changes we've made to the personnel report just since last Wednesday. So that's why you have the revised report, and I can tell you, I've already had a couple, since school got out today, that are already in process between both leaving and hiring. So, but seeking permission on the personnel report, recommendation for employment under certified, Aaron Lloyd as Head Start teacher at Little Spark Preschool, Tiffany Sanchez as elementary teacher at Grandview Elementary, Cassandra Sisler as elementary teacher at Frazee, Andrew Stanley teaching 7th and 8th graders as an alternative education teacher at Spartan Learning Center, Billy Watkins, Title I preschool teacher at Little Spartan Preschool. Then under classified staff, recommending Rhonda Day as custodian at Frazee, Elisa Dolphy as new receptionist here at the admin building, Elizabeth Fry as Title I educational assistant at Fayette Central, Portia Hilsky as Head Start nutrition bus assistant, Grace Jones as special education assistant at Fayette Central, Olivia Lehman as Head Start nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan, Jessica Morris as the guidance secretary at the middle school, Brianna Polyak as Head Start nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan, Jeremy Selby as custodian at Little Spartan, Natalie Selby as bus assistant at Little Spartan, Peyton Simpkins as the executive secretary at Fayette Central, Lauren Edwards, moving on to the extracurricular, recommend Lauren Edwards as JV volleyball coach at the high school. Under classified staff, Caitlin Burris as JV cheer coach at the high school. Ricky Combs as 8th grade girls basketball coach, and Peyton Simpkins as the 7th grade girls basketball coach. The last part of it is also the administration is requesting authorization to add the position of 7th and 8th grade alternative education teacher at the Spartan Learning Center.
That's Andrew's position?
Yes.
Okay. I'm curious as to what, Andrew was employed as a teacher, and basically we had to do this because he's changing basically from a teacher to an administrative position?
No, it's still a teaching position.
Okay.
It's because it's a new position.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise it'd be a transfer.
Otherwise,
But it
yeah,
really is a
that was
transfer.
what,
but
I guess
yes.
that's my question, why it just wasn't a transfer?
Because the new position, you have to approve that, so we sort of put it
Yeah, we
together.
put them all
Okay.
together.
Yeah.
If the position had already existed, this would have been a transfer that
Well,
they
like
don't normally
like
come
the
to the
thing with
board.
Sandy Peck, to transition from middle school to, okay, so
That's just a transfer.
Yes.
Okay. Just trying to get.
Yep.
And Andrew has had some extensive background working with our at-risk population as a teacher at Maplewood.
He was a behavioral consultant
Behavioral
at
consultant,
middle
so.
school for a while, and then he was at Maplewood for a while, so.
So 7th and 8th graders have not been included yet, right?
No, this is new.
This is new, this is all new.
And this will be at the Spartan Learning Center, so they'll be bused there, is it just half day?
It's going to be half day, and they will be bused there back and forth, and, it's for some of our more, some of them actually have IEPs,
Okay.
in which we have been able to have some separate scheduling at the elementary, but it's a little bit more difficult to do when you have 7 different teachers and they need more of that consistent one teacher, one-on-one. So we're going to try this just to see, and it's like when we started SLC in the beginning, we're gonna build this airplane in the air, so it's going to be some bumps at first, but we think it's still in the best interest of these kids to start accommodating some of the younger kids. We've had such success with the 8th graders repeating that many have moved back to their original cohort. So we feel like the earlier we can intervene, the better we are at getting these kids on track before they start gaining credits at the high school level. So this is gonna be kind of like a pilot to let us know if we see success in this population, and if so, then we can continue to go from there. But it's gonna be a small population.
So this differs from the bridge program in that we're doing 7th graders, and the bridge program was just 8th graders.
Right, it's not credit recovery.
Okay.
Where the 8th graders were doing credit recovery and gaining additional high school credits,
Good.
these kids will be for getting direct instruction at their middle school level under the supervision of Andrew Stanley. And then if they have success in that, then we will use Edgenuity, or we have Path Blazer, it's another online program that we can use. And if they see success in both of those and we can get them back to the middle school for some of their encore or electives, we will do so. But we're gonna do a slow progression of that.
Is this mostly math and English? Is it all math and English?
Yes, core, math,
Core.
English, yes.
Okay. And all of them will be half day at the same time, or is it 2 groups?
It'll be 2 groups. There'll be an AM, PM group, just like we did with the older kids.
Okay.
About how many kids do you know?
We're looking at capping it at 10, because unlike the SLC kids, there are some behavioral needs with this group. The current SL kids, 8th through 12th, are not behavior needs, they're more just need a different type of setting, and they need credit recovery, where these kids are more of those, what a teacher would consider a heavy hitter and have more behavior needs and need more support in terms of less transition, less unsupervised time. So we're gonna have less of them. We're gonna start with 10.
And this will relieve the general school population, the middle school, because what one of these children can do in the classroom when you have 25 others, it creates a real, it's a conundrum. There's no right answers to this. So this will separate those kids out, give them the one-on-one that they need, and hopefully they'll learn to transition better and make better decisions.
Absolutely.
And they won't have as big an audience, which will be really good.
Well, great.
Yes.
Okay. I would like to seek a motion to approve the personnel report.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Head Start Family Services Coordinator salary schedule, Mr. Harris.
Next, I'm requesting approval to add a new level to our classified employee salary schedule. This new level is attached, and it is for Family Service Coordinator. Next month, I intend to be to the board to request changes to the salary schedule for classified staff. We needed to bring this one today because we're setting it aside, and it's needed for the purposes of Head Start. Some of the requirements that they have made have increased for this type of position. Therefore, we're requesting raising the salaries in that to be more commensurate with the educational requirements for that position.
And it's just a singular person that has this position?
No,
No.
there's 3 now, I
Oh.
believe. There were 4 and 1, but there are 3.
Okay. I would like to seek a motion to approve the Head Start Family Service Coordinator salary schedule.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. May I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ryan. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Baseball, football parking lot, Mr. Harris.
This one, I owe the board an apology, and I'm going to yell at Mr. Drew since he's sitting here at the table. I should have came to the board earlier to seek approval for this since it's more than $25,000. Daryl came to me right at a month ago and said, hey, if we get this on Crim's list, they'll be able to take care of it, before the summer. So before the summer's out, I said, well, let's do that and see when they can get it on there. So the thought was, in my head, they were going to get to this in the latter part of July, August, somewhere here at the start of school. They were out there like the next week.
No, the next day.
They were like, once they got approval, it was all, they went. So in arrears, so to speak, I'm seeking approval from the board to install new parking lot in the gravelled area. If you remember last year, between the football field and the baseball diamonds. If you haven't been out there, it does. They're going, right now they have put the first layer on it. When we get done doing some more work out there, then they're going to put a 1/2-inch top coat over everything. And then at that time, they will line the parking lot.
Can you remind me, I think we saw, somebody sent us a picture, or I think I saw a picture. It's behind the bleachers, right? It's that, and it's been widened?
Yep, it's kind of on the corner that goes all the way out to where the existing road was.
Yeah.
It fills in between the football fence to the existing drive back to the baseball diamond.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the baseball, football parking lot.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. NWEA renewal, Ms. Corsaro.
It's the time of year when we have to get board approval for the renewal of NWEA. As you know, we use the formative assessment grant to fund NWEA, and we also use NWEA for the dyslexia screener requirement that the state has. So at this time, I'm asking for approval of NWEA to pay for NWEA.
And I'd like to seek a motion to approve that NWEA renewal.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion?
This is a good test. We wish the state would use it, rather than iLearn and whatever they have, because as a classroom teacher, this gives you instant feedback for the student and a lot of valuable information that you wait months for from the state standardized test. It's really a good tool, and I don't really care what it costs. It's worth every penny of it, and augmenting what teachers can do in the classroom to help their kids learn. And I'm not a fan of standardized tests, so this one is a good one.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the elementary CMS CHSWCC discipline plans plus conduct FCSC code.
Sorry.
Go
Last
for it.
month, we talked about the changes in the books and why they're a little bit later than in the past. So tonight, I'm asking for recommendation of the handbooks for all of the identified schools.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion for the handbooks, code of conduct, all that.
I read every single word of all of those,
I bet you did.
so I would like to make the motion to approve those.
Well, thank you, Mark. Hear a second? Who's seconding? Wait, which one are you?
He's read everyone with the
Mark's the
second
first and
too.
the second on this one.
Chris, did you?
Mark,
You
can
seconded?
make videotape?
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to move on to discussion items, and we'll start with the baseball fields. Mr. Harris.
I'm bringing forward just requested information we had. I talked about previously that we were going to seek bids for the baseball diamond, and we went through the proper procedures, solicited the bids. We received 2 bids for the baseball diamond. And when I say the baseball diamond, what I'm talking about is a new baseball diamond for the high school baseball team. It includes the diamond. It does not include dugouts, doesn't include the concession stand / storage area behind it. So when I talk about the diamond, it would be new sod for the field, all of the leveling, of course, those things, fencing around the diamond, backstop, the short wall, as I describe it, the block wall for the backstop. Everything you need to play, 2 bullpens on either sideline, 2 pitching mounds in each of those bullpens, obviously the mound and all of those things on the diamond. And with that, the low bid was approximately $900,000. It was just a little bit under that. The other bid was approximately $1.8 million. I don't know why there was such a discrepancy. Whether they just thought, if we get this, it's going to be a great deal. If we don't get it, okay too. I don't know the reasoning for it. But those were the bids that I did receive on the baseball diamond. And that's where we are right now. Oh, also included lights. Probably the
Right,
key
which,
bid.
if I understood, we had a light that went out, and the pole, everything's old, right, the
The
lights?
light poles are.
The light poles, I think they're the original lights and poles when the baseball diamond was originally built.
And that was what, sort of backstory of this. When we redid the softball field, the one existing softball field was really bad. Standing water in the outfield, the dugouts were leaning and falling, and so that decision was made to put a field with lights similar to what baseball had. So we built that new field where that old practice field or whatever that was.
JV field.
JV field, yeah.
JV baseball.
Yeah. And so from that, then the old softball field, we had volunteers in the career center work on redoing the fence, replacing it. So we saved a lot. We didn't spend a lot of money on that JV field, I guess. We didn't put lights, and career center did dugouts with a contractor. So it was a learning thing for them. And so from that then, we had been planning to buy new lights for the baseball field. Because if you take a look at them, they go like this, and they have woodpecker holes all in them. And so we had budgeted that, and we just put it on hold because we really talked then about, and we've had conversations with the board about adding another field. Our baseball field, it has a slope off in the right field, is that right, Jason? And it's not perfectly level out there. I know the boosters paid money to redo the sod on the infield a few years ago, right, Kim? You were part of that group. So that's where we were at. It's a lot of money. It's expensive to do anything, and so, really we're seeking your guidance on where do we go with it. Randy did budget money in our budget for '23 to cover about $930,000. Was it?
We had just over $900,000 budgeted, and we have the bid came in at just under $900,000.
But we'll have the dugouts and the press spot. We hope to work with the career center again and save a lot of money and do that. So that's sort of where we're at, and we just need some direction because it is a lot, and we have a big facility study going on with a limited pot of money.
And
that's
it will
a
make us
backstory.
Title IX compliant.
That's another factor.
Well, the thing that aggravates me about that is that we took the JV baseball field out of the boys program to build the girls softball field. So those kids have been running around all over the county playing their games.
I wanted to ask that, where does JV baseball currently play?
Everywhere, but
Big Run Park, family.
a lot on the varsity field, right, Jason?
Yeah, and then they practice on the paper.
Okay.
So the middle school, we've also started middle school softball, and the softball fields are good because we have plenty of space for those teams. That's the other issue with the baseball. Our program's growing, and that presents a dilemma when we have so many teams playing, 14 trying to play on that one field, plus get practices in. So that's sort of the backstory for everyone with where we're at. We could have just put new lights on that field, but when you talked to Coach Thompson and, looked at CHS administration a couple of years ago, it was like, we really need this, and I agree, but it's a lot of money. And we have a lot of other things that we need to spend those dollars on.
With 4 teams practicing on it, it's going to get rough real quick on it.
With what?
With 4 teams on it, practicing, playing, night, it's gonna wear it out real quick, and the grass is gonna die, and we're gonna have to do something else. We'll end up resodding it or turfing it probably.
But it's always been this way, right?
We've never had 4 teams practicing playing on it, just,
Our
we had
program's
our varsity team on the varsity field, and the JV was on the JV field.
which it wasn't much of a JV.
No, it was.
No,
It was dangerous.
Yeah.
We played on it for years.
Yeah.
I coached JV baseball for
You had
7
to
years.
hit, you had to hit the trees, didn't you, for a home run or something?
Down over the hill, you had to run it out.
It wasn't safe, but
So is
That's an
baseball
old
and
story gone
softball
by.
the exact same time, or do they overlap? I mean, is it the
Fields
very?
are two different. I mean, you got a 200-foot fence versus a 350-foot fence. I mean, there's a big difference.
But they play at the same time, right? I mean, the softball, baseball, they both are,
Spring sports.
it's all spring.
And baseball
of course,
can't
but-
use a softball because of the size of the field.
See, that's what I wondered, if somehow,
I think the baseball players would like playing softball.
Yeah,
They'd like to play on the
They can hit a lot of home runs.
And the baseball program is expanding. The middle school now has a baseball program. And because I also sit on the park board, we've had discussions about what's going on out at River's Edge and putting baseball fields there, which is gonna be down the road, okay? So for right now, our middle school teams are playing on the big guys field down at the old Babe Ruth Park, which is the field that was built in dedicated in 1998, because those big guys used to play in the infield of the amphitheater at Robbers Park, and they moved down there in 98. So the park board is trying to work with the athletic department to figure out how all that's gonna work to allow the middle school baseball team to use the 13 to 15-year-old field, which is the one that's the farthest east. It's also in the floodplain, but that whole thing is in the floodplain. We're fortunate in that we've not had that kind of flooding in a while, and they realize that the risk is involved, but it's a matter of what the parks department is going to be responsible for as far as maintenance and the like, and what the school corporation is going to be responsible for. Because the facility is there. It's set up, and it is a facility that fits the needs of the middle school kids. It's got the mound, it has the right length of the field, the fencing in the proper places as far as the outfield is concerned. So it's a good venue, but it's not used by the Parks Department anymore for their rec league, because they no longer offer rec league for that group of kids. The rec league for the Parks Department stops at age 12. So we used to do a 13 to 15, we don't, so it's that facility that the middle school has been using, and we're trying to, the park board and the athletic department are trying to figure out something that's amenable to both sides, because when it's not flooded, it's a pretty good field, except in left field where there's a big dip out there. But that would be an ideal position, but the JV boys, you rob Peter to pay Paul, quite literally. We took away the girls, the boys' practice field to give it to the girls. And the girls used to play down at Industrial, which is not the best of parts. So, we're trying to keep things equal, and as Mark said, to keep up with Title IX. Because usually that was about women's facilities not being as good as men's. Well, in this case, it's the women's facilities are considerably better than the men's, and we want to make sure that we're compliant with that.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Soccer has JV and varsity typically most years, right? We have one field for boys and girls, correct?
We have a practice field as well.
We have two practice.
And so do they play games on the practice field?
No.
So
It's not
is it a scheduling nightmare to schedule all those soccer, because you do JV and varsity in the same spot for both boys and
Right
girls?
now, it's not, because we haven't gotten middle school involved yet, but middle school will be happening this year. But no, the boys and girls just kind of rotate times, so some go right after school, and the girls usually go right after school, the boys usually go late. So that's never an issue with boys and girls, and JV and varsity practice together, because we don't have massive teams right now, so they can still practice, their fields are big enough, they can split one end, other end, that kind of stuff.
But we don't practice JV and varsity baseball together?
Too many,
Too many kids?
too many.
Okay.
And then if the ball is flying around, it's a safety concern.
Okay.
And the other practice field is behind the Career Center. It actually has goal, I mean, it was a football practice field too, is that right? So it's not a marked field, it's not the full size, it's just a good level place where they can get out there and practice.
Right. Where my head went when I saw the numbers was, one, we're doing this facility study and really want to enrich and bring up to, well, not code, but bring up to standard our buildings. And, you know, we have a limited amount of money, and then I see almost $1 million, probably $1 million with everything added all together once you do the dugouts and all that, even though we have our people, but materials or whatever. And then I was thinking, this was my, the sequence of my thoughts. Then I started thinking about the pool. We have all those pricings of the pool. And that's what I was quickly trying to look at, and I couldn't pull those up really quickly to remember the pricing. But, I would love to spend $1 million on a pool, which I don't know that we will be able to do that or not, given all of our needs. And, the pool's been lacking for a really long time. So, and really for me, generally, since I'm not an athletic person, except for the swim side of me, I generally go along with this because I don't know the needs, and I trust all of you to know, and I want to make sure our kids get what they need. But it just was a lot of money. It was just an incredible amount of money. And I know it was earmarked out of the operations fund, and then I was just thinking, well, what else could we earmark that money for out of the operations? So my mind was just going in all different places. I do want us to be compliant, absolutely. And hearing Daryl's comment, 4 teams, and I'm not familiar with, I know what baseball is, but I'm not familiar with how that field will get damaged with all these kids on there.
Come to a game.
Probably should. But that won't tell me about how much
Usage.
yeah, and how it damages the field.
Rain will play a big factor in that too, Leslie.
Like how much rain.
If we get a lot of rain outs, you're gonna have nightmares.
But isn't that true for any field, softball,
No.
soccer?
Not for one team.
Oh.
1 or 2 teams, you can get that in.
Oh, but when you have 4 that are trying to play.
A lot of times in soccer, you can play in the rain.
Well, right.
In
do play,
baseball,
right.
you really can't.
And also too, I don't know if you're aware, in baseball, they're in a professional game, they actually take time out to redo some things. And I know down when I worked at the Little League Park, at the end of about half the game, we would go in, restripe what it needed to be striped, and had a special rake to drag the field to keep it more even on the infield. So there's maintenance going on even while the game is going on. And if you let those things get out of hand, they can get out of hand incredibly quickly. And then you have much more expense, just period. The amount of brick dust that we had to keep down to keep the Babe Ruth fields running was huge. There would be mountains of it at the beginning of the season. By the end of the season, shovels and the like had put a lot of it on the infields in particular, and keep down the baselines, because when you've got all these kids, and they're not going to take the care that perhaps we would as an adult, because they're kids and they're tough on things. They're tough on the turf. Sliding into bases, all that kind of stuff. You don't realize over the course of even a game sometime how much that does when you have to go and re-drag the fields between games. There's just an awful lot of work to that to keep it up. And if you don't, then you end up with ruts and having to call the fire department to get the water off the field. So those kinds of
That's
things
how they
are
do
kind
it?
of
They call the fire department?
Sometimes.
Oh, yeah, called the Everton Fire Department.
Wow.
They would come down to the Babe Ruth field all the time when it would start creeping in. And they would we'd have the pumps out there, and they were out in left field. And
It's a whole world, I don't know.
the firemen with the pumps would be out there in left field trying to keep the water off the field so we could play and keep going. But there's the maintenance of fields like that is just, if you've never done it, it's really quite amazing how much work it takes to keep it where it needs to be to have the kids play. And if you've ever seen the movie The Sandlot, that's not what we want here at Connersville High School and Connersville Middle School for our kids. We want a really good facility.
And that's
Bob
what I was
Corner used to
wondering.
call me and my crew down with our backpack blowers. There'd be 4 of us out there trying to push poles out into the...
Hey, are you volunteering?
I did.
Yeah.
A lot.
Thank you very much.
What are our numbers at baseball?
We had, you guys had 35,
Yeah, about
30?
30 at the high school level.
Yeah, about 30, they started like 32 high school, and then middle school, we're sitting right around the 25 mark.
Okay. And what's our feeder programs look like? Are they pretty strong?
We're working on that as we speak.
Oh.
We're starting a travel program.
Oh,
Hopefully we'll go in the city, hopefully we'll show that we can make money. For the city, we don't want any of the money. We just want to make, hopefully they can get those new cars through.
We had for rec ball last year and this came up, what Jason's talking about came up at our park board meeting also, trying to work, and we'll be trying to work with you on that. We had, I want to say about 200 kids in the baseball program. There were more in T-ball. T-ball was huge. That's, but as far as baseball, between coach's pitch and the kid pitch, so this would be like ages 8 through 12. I think we had a little over 200 kids. And that's a smaller number, but it is a feeder number. And now that the middle school is offering the baseball teams, that started out as a club a few years ago. And it's been better publicized, and it's given the kids another place to go other than to a travel team, which sometimes can be quite expensive. So it gives them a transition into a school sport. So I applaud what we're trying to do to build that program. But it's going to take some time, but the interest seems to be, COVID shut everything down, and that just really, spring sports in particular suffered because the kids were ready to play and there was no place to play. So it's taken some while to get back into that. But yeah, I'm aware of what Jason is trying to do with the city, and I think that's a really good thing also.
Are numbers up in any of the other sports, or?
Softball's 39 girls in high school. Middle school, there were 23 girls between the 2 teams. Soccer, we're starting a club middle school soccer team this year. Those numbers are up. Football is getting larger. Ryan's done a great job publicizing that. Boys golf numbers, boys tennis numbers, even girls tennis numbers. We had 25 girls try out for girls tennis this year. Some of our other sports are kind of just holding on. But a lot of our outdoor sports are the ones that are actually growing. So, those are the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, my concern is, it's a small group of students considering how many is at the high school and all. And, it's not year round. I mean, it's only used for how many weeks a year, not very many, considering. As to like the field house, it's used for many sports, it's used year round. I mean, it's a wonderful facility that can be used for many versus just one specific sport for a specific time of year. I mean, it's just so much money. And another thing, like the dugouts, press box and all, we don't know for sure how much that's gonna cost, right? And with the Career Center students helping, that would just be less labor. I mean, it's still gonna cost, materials, supplies and all, it's gonna be the same. So it'll be just a little bit less labor is what I'm figuring, right, on that? Okay. And bleachers, has there been quotes for new bleachers yet, or?
We don't normally do bleachers a lot because parents like to sit in their folding chairs and sit in the shade and so we don't do a lot of bleachers in the baseball.
So you wouldn't want new bleachers, then that's something that,
If you
Are
did,
there
it'd be very
bleachers?
small, I think. set of them.
A very minimal,
We-
very minimal amount, because it's nice and people don't want to sit on the hot bleachers, they
Yeah.
want to sit in the.
Are there some now, or?
There are a few.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I
You
just
can probably get 30 on it. maybe.
took it that that would be
Hill on the outfield too.
something.
When they have the hill in the outfield.
Lori, you ought to come to a baseball game sometime.
So, and then also I saw on here where, now will it be connected to city water, the irrigation and all that, or is it with a well?
City.
It'd be city.
It'd be
I mean,
city,
that's the way everything else is. I mean.
because in the quote it was saying, it was, talking about a well, it may require a new well if there's not enough pressure. So
Soccer's
that's
on
what
Soccer's
I
on
was.
the city.
And football is too.
Football is too,
Yeah,
yes.
football is too.
Water's already out there.
So everything, well, that's what I thought, but it's stated in here about a well, so that's what I wondered if there was separation in the water. Okay.
And typically, those wells are just used for watering purposes, but not for anything else. They are a shallower well, but as long as we got access to the city water and city sewer, we're fine.
And then, of course, it's gonna take more maintenance for the ground people too. I know I think Mark's the one last month said that, cut down on mowing grass and all, the 2 lots and all that, but this is gonna be taking on more, so, as far as maintaining it and all that kind
A
of
lot of
thing, and I
times your
know.
coaches push mow that field.
Yeah.
We don't pay a lot to get it mowed. They push mow the field because they want it a certain way.
Yeah.
Did you do that this year, Jason?
Weeds
No, that goes with the territory.
of Babe Ruth.
Territory of Babe
Did
Ruth.
you mow?
That's the way it is now.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times Babe Ruth mowed it, their parents mowed it when we didn't want it mowed. When I was at the park.
Yeah, but
We got in trouble with Daryl.
Maybe we should get all the sports families to do that then. Hey, your kids can play if you come and help out. Hey, there you go.
We might have to have the people that play instruments wax the floor in the stage.
Well, hey.
Share the love.
Well, I think the volunteerism, parents were, it's kind of a catch-22. If we have a nice facility for the kids, then the kids will want to play. And the parents will be supportive of their kids that want to play, if they have a nice facility to play in, and it attracts people to the area. And I think that's one of the things that the city is working on also as far as River Bend is concerned. To have a facility that's usable and is attractive to, and as far as the high school is concerned, in the middle school, it's not, we don't have to attract the people to come here, they're on the schedule. I mean, we're gonna play them. And all of the coaches, I'm sure, Jason, you have been to baseball fields at other schools, and you just go, I have to send my kids out on that thing, because they are so poor, so poorly maintained, or they're so poorly laid out, that it creates a hazard for your kids. Particularly, there's a place over in someplace where the left field goes like this, and it's up a hill, and it's considerable. And if the place isn't maintained, then it becomes a danger to the kids that are playing, and you don't want to do that. You just don't want to do that. Your opponents can water down the field pretty much, particularly the football field. They can make it a quagmire and nobody says anything. But with baseball, it's quite different because it shows. It just shows. So we need to keep integrity in if we want to keep integrity in our programs and grow the programs.
And not just baseball, but across the board, it's not just for the athletes either. I mean, we attracted a good basketball coach because we have Spartan Bowl.
Right.
I mean, if you want to attract good coaches, and I'm not saying we're looking for baseball coaches right now, but coaches don't stay around forever. You want to continue to attract quality coaches so that you have a quality program. And if you bring them to the Sandlot, I mean, you're going to get that kind of coach, honestly.
And it's going to be embarrassing. We can't compete with New Pal. Sorry, we just don't have the tax base or the volunteers or the corporate money or anything like that. Because there's nothing more intimidating for our teams, and we do well. I'm so proud of them, we do well. But you go to a new PAL, for example, and everybody on the team has a lot, and everything matches, and it's clear that they've spent a lot of money on the kids. We are on a much more limited budget, and would you say, Jason, that there's an intimidation factor from the minute that you walk in? It's like in the scene in Hoosiers, when they first walk into Butler Fieldhouse, they go, and he has to measure the length of the foul line and the basket. That's kids, and that's normal. But if we want to give our kids and our community, we have to invest in. How long did it take us to get the money to put the handrails in Spartanburg? Not long. We got a lot of community support with that. And the comments after graduation from the older members of the audience that were there, they were so thankful. They could see their kids, their grandkids graduate. They didn't have to sit up on the top row. And I'm real anxious to see how that translates during basketball season. But we got the community involved in that. And it didn't take us, we had the money raised in 3 weeks, something like that. And you can't use that strategy all the time, because you can't ask people to give and give and give and give and give. That wears pretty thin. But we could selectively do that over the next few years. Ask people, do we want this program? The people that are interested in that. I think we have new lights on the tennis court a few years ago because one of our former tennis coaches got a group of people together and paid for a lot of that. So I think we have some resources that we can tap that I think are important to tap in the community. There can't be I don't know if there's the expectation was part of the school, so they should handle it all. That might have been nice a few years ago, but with budgets and the things the way they are, everybody has to contribute. If it's volunteer time, if it's money, anything like that is going to be appreciated. Because if you don't have to pay somebody to mow, and you mow, then you've given them that amount of money back.
And I think sometimes we have to make do with what we have too. This is a huge amount of money for a program that's just a few months a year. I mean, and you know, we're supposed to be looking over the taxpayers' money, the dollars that come in and everything. And to me, we haven't even decided on the facilities, what we're gonna do there yet. We have no idea, and there's so many needs there and not enough funding to go around at all. There's not near enough. And this is extracurricular, okay? This is not academics. And this I just can't justify it. I mean, I just can't see going on with this when we have no idea what we're gonna do for the kids that are in classrooms every day throughout the school year.
There's a compliance issue though. If Connersville High School does not comply with Title IX, and that's federal stuff, and you don't mess with, if somebody wants to file a complaint against us because we're violating Title IX rights of our men's program to have an equal thing as our girls' program, the fallout from that, not only from the embarrassment, but the legal fees, and these kinds of things have happened. You hope that they won't. It's like you're going 85 miles down the freeway and say, oh my gosh, I hope I don't get stopped by a cop because I'm going to be in big trouble. Eventually, we cannot be non-compliant of the law forever. It's going to catch up with us, and when it does, it could be really ugly. I don't like the amount of money that's being spent either, but I know that if any public institution is non-compliant with the law, then you've got some trouble. Because when River Bend was first built, they were compliant at the time. Now they are non-compliant, and to go back 25 years later and have to go fix it so now we can use it to be compliant is costing the city of Connersville a ton of money that we didn't really have to do. So it's kind of the pay me now or pay me later. Are we willing to take the risk of being non-compliant with Title IX? And I can't answer that. I mean, that's really up to everybody. But that's just what sticks in my head.
And how long has it been around? It's been many years, right?
Title IX was in 1970, and that's why women's sports are where they are. That's what it was designed to do, to have equal facilities for men and women, okay?
We were in compliance when we had a JV field that then got taken over by the.
Right.
So we were in compliance.
We were in compliance, but now,
The girls weren't.
Yeah, the girls were shorted then.
the girls were shorted then, so it's,
It's
you know,
Peter and Paul.
Peter and Paul situation. However, everything has more scrutiny now.
Have we had any guidance by the attorney?
Yes,
And what did she
I
say?
directly asked her, she said if we go to court over it, we would lose.
But there's nothing in the past that's ever been
I don't know.
done since the 70s or anything?
Oh,
I mean,
no, there are
that's when it
Title
came
IX
into
suits
effect.
all over the place. There are
Yeah,
Title IX
of
suits
course.
out, if you want to look at the case law of Title IX, a lot of it was on the collegiate level, but a lot of it was also on the high school level, particularly in inner city schools, who were obviously, and they eliminated some programs. Some inner city schools were forced to eliminate both programs because they could not be compliant. So it's like, okay, we can't follow Title IX, we only have one facility. Sorry, guys, we can't have your program because we don't have the money. And
Let's kind of wrap this up. Is there any other?
I would like to say
Sure,
too,
absolutely.
that education doesn't only happen in classrooms. Education happens on all these ball fields and in that pool and everywhere too. You know, qualities that these kids gain playing these sports are oftentimes much more important to make them successful adults than some of those classes that they go to in the school building. That's the truth. I mean, you can look up article after article about the success of adults, of people that were kids that were in athletics. And athletics, I mean, between, teamwork and just all of those things that make you dig down deep and make things happen. And, those are the kind of things that you don't learn in a classroom. You learn them there. And to me, those are just as important. I don't think that the stuff in the classroom is unimportant, but I think one is just as important as the other one to form that human, to form that adult that we're trying to produce here. And I mean, I think it's super important. I mean, I hadn't had in the past a high school athlete like I did the one that I just graduated, and he was a 3-sport athlete. And when you look at his dedication and determination and all of those things that he has, I mean, it's completely different. It's completely different. The things that my other children have, they're great, but they're different. And there's no doubt in my mind that he'll be successful in life because he won't accept anything else. Because that's what he learned to do.
the state of Illinois took out a lot of extracurriculars a few years ago for funding reasons and the fact that they had a governor that's now in federal prison, and that had an awful lot to do with it. But they took away extracurriculars in a huge number of schools. And the argument that was made at the time was that the extracurriculars, the sports, they took away the sports, the music, all that stuff, academics only. It backfired hugely. And particularly with the kids not having something constructive to do, there weren't enough jobs to take up this time. So, but the things that they learned through the competition, through the camaraderie, The mentoring of the coaches, a lot of these kids, even in Connersville, perhaps come from a kind of dysfunctional family. And this field is where they feel comfortable, they feel supported. You know, things might be tough at home, but and I'm sure Jason has had this, a kid will come to you and say, hey, coach, you know, I'm struggling with this, help me out here. And you just do it, because that's part of your job. That's part of the teaching and coaching are a lot of the same kinds of things, but it is an intangible that's taught. And those are the kinds of intangibles. You look at professional athletes, and I don't know that we'll have any come out of here, but what they will go back and look at is the coaches that they had when they were younger, and the fact that they were given the opportunities to play. And whether the end of it is high school, or they go on to play beyond that, that valuable experience is still there, and is a part of who they are.
Any other comments? Let's wrap that up so we can, anybody else have anything else to say?
I think it's more of just some direction on where to go. You know, Jason, you've been to all the ball fields in our conference, and we're not trying to build a Taj Mahal either. I want that for the taxpayers. A lot of these schools are putting in artificial turf. I mean, these college level fields, Lawrenceburg is redoing 3 fields with turf, I know, I talked to their AD. And we can't compare ourselves to that. So we're trying to do this on the best budget we can, but everything's expensive. So if we do kick it down the road, which that's your prerogative, it'll cost more in another year. And I get Lori completely. I mean, we have limited funds to take care of a lot of aging buildings, but.
I think to sum up from my point, 2 things. The Title IX component. We pay our lawyer, I don't know how much a year, I should probably know that, but I don't. And she advises us we're gonna lose if this goes to court. And then we've already allocated $900,000 out of the operations fund, not out of the facility study. So I think it's time to do it. And I'm ready to vote if anybody else is.
Well, it's a discussion item, so we can't vote tonight,
Okay.
but it can be brought back next month.
But see, when we started doing this last summer, the baseball field wasn't brought up. It was what, like in November or December of last year,
I
Mark?
don't know. 2 years ago, Lori, you were against it because it was the farm field, and now it's the budget. And I get it both times. You know, everybody's got their own perspective. I understand that.
Well, and we're not, and all of us would like to fix everything. I mean, we want the best for our kids, whether it be in the classroom, whether it be on the athletic field. We want the best for our kids. But the best we have to work within the budget constraints that we are given. So we have to spend our money wisely, but one federal lawsuit could wipe out an awful lot. Because if you lose a federal lawsuit like that, you have to pay the legal expenses of the person who brought the suit.
I would like to suggest that we bring this back as an action item so we can deal with it. Are the bids still good, or do you have to rebid?
No, they're still good. They're good, I believe, for 90 days.
Okay.
And we'll need to start soon because we'll lose that grass season, which is the other factor with it. So we just sort of need direction, and this wasn't to cause you guys.
Well, just from hearing
So-
people, I would recommend that it come back for an
Okay.
action item. I don't know what others think. We can't vote on it, it's a discussion item.
Well, and to the
so-
public too, because I've had a few people call me on it, not a lot or anything. But in their eyes, you know, all we talk about is declining enrollment, cutting costs. But then on the other hand, build $1 million baseball field. You know, how can that be justified? You know? And I get it. I mean, I really get it. I mean.
And the lowest bid for the pool, I believe, if I remember right, just to make it sustainable,
Yeah.
is $5 million.
Yeah, right,
And I think we have to have a pool.
yeah,
You know.
I know.
And there's such limited funding.
And there's also a big elephant in the room still running around. Nobody wants to talk about closing elementary schools
Right.
when we all know it's gonna happen sooner or later.
That we can build a baseball field.
But that's totally separate now.
Well,
Yeah, and the thing of it is, closing an elementary school isn't violating federal law.
Well, and it's not, closing elementary school is not really the main part of the facility study, but I think it overshadows everything else that we're gonna do. We got tough decisions to make, and you gotta make them sooner or later. You gotta pull the plug and do something.
All right, we've had enough discussion? Everybody just looking? Just seeing if we've had enough discussion? All right, let's move on to the Gibraltar Skillman Corporation. Thanks for your patience.
Yes, thank you for having us today. And just so you know, we are at different board meetings in different parts of the state, and these same conversations are happening.
Yeah.
Still putting everything on the table, having difficult conversations about making decisions, but that's why we're all here. What the public should appreciate is the amount of time that you guys put into learning about these decisions. And that's why we're here again today. Before we jump in, going to have Mike give an update on the high school project.
Yeah, the job order contract, and Randy, step in because you're probably more up to date with some of the stuff that I'm aware of. But on the job order contracting, the work at the high school includes, and the scope is still the same as what we presented previously. It means a new high school chiller, all the galvanized piping in the high school is being replaced, a new water heater and related work. So those three major items are what happened. Some of the activity recently involving Gibraltar and North Mechanical, we, after we put out our documents, you received a quote for doing that work. We sat down and had a meeting with our engineers. I think Randy, you may have been in that meeting too, and Daryl. We sat down with Dustin Snyder from North Mechanical, and we reviewed his drawings. First, we reviewed the drawings with the engineers. We came back with some questions and made sure that everything that was in our documents, the intent of our documents were met, that's what he quoted on. And he assured us, and we had a few things back and forth, and everything in our documents is going to be provided to you at the amount of money that he has been awarded for. I think you're going to find that you're getting a very good deal for your money on this. He gave you a very good price on doing the work. We received a schedule from him just recently, and according to his schedule, and Randy stepped in, we understand that they are mobilized at the high school and they have started doing work there, maybe some demolition, some certain areas of the building, getting ready for putting in new piping, things like that. All the way through final completion, the schedule says that the last thing to be completed is the chiller and starting up the chiller in the high school 1 year from August 1st. So in August 1st, 2024, the new chiller should be up and running and this work should be substantially complete. Randy, is that kind of sum up?
Yeah, I think that summarized, Mike's done a good job of summarizing it. This came in, doing the job order contracting. I will tell you, I was a little leery, just because of the different way of doing it. You don't go out to bid, there's, what do you say? This is way bigger than our, there's like a 4,000 page document of the prices. It's anything from MEP product or projects like we're doing to landscaping to everything that you can think of dealing with buildings and whatever. And so the pricing comes directly off of that. We have approximately $900,000 of the GO bond to be able to use in this, and the price came in at,
It's a little over 500.
yeah, it was a little over 500,000. So when we get farther along on this, we will still have some of the GO bond available for some other projects and things.
And this was just that one bond that you all approved?
Yeah, just the one bond.
And we're gonna pay it off?
Randy, do you want to also maybe add what some additional work they might be doing within that month?
Additional work, I don't know if this was good timing, bad timing, or whatever, but we've had a chilling unit or an air conditioning unit that sits above the library and feeds into 6 classrooms. And we've done some things out of our current budget to Band-Aid it, but it's going to be about $100,000 to replace that, but we're going to be able to take care of that at the same time. So we will have air conditioning in the library in those areas, but the biggest problem, and when Mike talks about all of this will be a year from August 1, body-wise, body counts, workers and all that, they're ready to go, but what if the delivery times on some of these projects are 8, 9, 10 months out. So it's a whole supply chain issue.
Yeah.
These guys deal with it every day, so.
Yeah, they're able to keep busy now until the chiller comes, and then when the time the chiller comes, the infrastructure will be in place and they'll be able to hook it up.
So were you saying, Randy, that we were gonna be able to do that unit above the library within this GEO bond?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
That's
that
a lot of work.
all becomes part of the JOC project that you approved back.
Right, but was that earmarked previously? No, or it was?
No, that was outside of we hadn't planned on replacing that
Yeah,
at this time, but then it became, we were able to, North Mechanical was able to find some pieces and parts to keep it going, but that unit, it's right back to what we've been talking about, what we'll be talking about tonight, you can't buy the replacement parts for those units anymore. You can't buy new replacement parts, they don't exist because of the age of the units.
We just had a smoke detector going off Sunday in the pool. And the fire department was up there twice. We cannot get that. We cannot find those. They have to rebuild them for us. So I mean, that's what we're getting into
Yeah.
part-wise is
okay.
we're not able to find stuff, so.
Is the work on the plumbing over at the high school, replacing all that gal, how is that gonna impact the students during the school year? Is it gonna be horrifically intrusive, or is,
Well, our observation and what we heard was North Mechanical is very trusted. I don't
Okay.
think you'd have invited them to do work for you, and because they've done it before, it's not the first time they've had to do work inside of a school at times when school's functioning. So we heard they were very sensitive in response to Darryl and his team's need to say, we need to be quiet on this day, please don't intrude on this. So
The guys coming in are very good, and we've dealt with them for years. We feel
Okay.
very comfortable with this company coming in and not interfering with our classroom. at
okay,
all.
because clearly that's the purpose that we're there, and having lived through a construction zone, it's a real difficult situation.
Were these pipes actually leaking, or are they just being replaced?
You might have missed
The pipe that was all corroded.
we passed around a pipe, and
Oh, okay.
So the short
Right.
version is, it's steel pipe, galvanized steel.
Right.
Unlike copper that we use today in your houses and stuff, or PVC, and so the steel pipe corrodes on the inside. And then it can rust and corrode so much that it just starts to leak, and you end up chasing leaks all over the place. So everybody, at some point in their buildings, if they intend to keep them, don't want water leaking overhead. or-
What's it being replaced with? What material?
Copper.
Okay.
And we just had a leak above the high school stage that,
We had one of them bust.
Yeah, I saw that.
And also, there's a lot of roughness inside those pipes, and when you're dealing with sewer problems and those kinds of things, then you have a whole nother set of issues, because things get clogged pretty easily.
They do, or it restricts the flow
Restricts the
for hot
flow.
water or cold water. So it's
Well, we had a leak bust and right on a $30,000 copier. I mean, so we're getting into some problems.
All right, well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Randy, for jumping in for the update. What we're going to cover this evening, you're going to see information that you have seen previously, but just because we reviewed that in a board work session in May, felt like it was relevant to bring it forward with new information that we also have today. You can see this milestone schedule. In June, we celebrated a one-year anniversary of researching your buildings and working together. So we started in June on this process, and you can see everything that we've done intentionally together throughout this course of the year, including, most recently the elementary school tours, and then also with the principal of visiting each of the buildings and doing that tour with them as well. Tonight we have this session and discussion, and then August and September just left a placeholder for what's next for us. Some of the new information that you're going to see tonight, we did an operational cost analysis of for each building, so you can kind of see the cost to operate those on an annual basis. Enrollment, in capacity. I wasn't comfortable bringing forward full capacity to you today because I want principal eyes on it first, just because the ones that are living in the building, you think about all the additional spaces when we went through Eastview that are being used because they've had expand programming. I didn't want to count that as a classroom without speaking with the principal first to see what impact it would have. So that will be a future meeting to share the capacity, but we do have an enrollment update. Also, a 3-school option with 1 large city schools, something, new information we're bringing forward today. And then I did include the principal input because after we had the opportunity to visit the schools and talk with the principals, just wanted to bring that forward so you can see how that's aligned. And then also, Skillman has an update on estimating items at each of the elementary schools that are beyond service life. So like, what are those items we're gonna have to address no matter what, and the estimated cost behind those, so we'll get into that as well. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. Just objectives for this evening. Just a placeholder to make sure that we're staying on track with these items. The importance of a generational life cycle of a school and projects like this. It's a rare opportunity. We're going to talk about the timing of the projects for 23 and 24. And then integrate learning. Think about what we learned from community input at the community meeting, then also our school tours, and then review the importance of the budget and scope. That'll always be aligned. And then continue our conversation with the additional learning that we have this evening. Seen that as a placeholder. As I go through the elementary principal input and overall considerations, there's some key words that are going to stick out. And if you think back to our conversations with them, things that kept sticking out to me, that small group spaces with RTI. So all those different support services that are happening that surfaced at Fayette Central, along with STEM, parking and arrival and dismissal, which we understand the concerns there. Staff restrooms. So if you look for those key words that come out, adapting technology as well. Yes, please.
So in that first one, the small group space, it seemed like Fayette Central had a lot of space.
For
I mean, they were using
space.
classrooms for some services that I didn't know needed a whole classroom.
I agree. They do have, when you see a capacity of Fayette Central, you'll see they have space where they can grow at Fayette Central.
Right, but these are like needs, like things that they wanted to.
This is what came from intentional, like, small group spaces. So if you think about, rather than having a whole classroom for 3 kids, it's great that you have that bonus space, but having a more intimate small group space to be able to.
Like a
That's what-
conference area maybe, around
Yeah.
the office and all, is that what you're
That
talking about?
conference, and then also if you look at the Everton Library that we did, they have the 2 small 10 by 12 rooms.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
Room for that, because there's so many
Okay.
pull-out groups and small group things with all of them. So I
Right,
think
and they
that's
just
what-
have larger spaces, not the small. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I'm like you, that's how
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Oh, please stop at any time as we go through this. Eastview, I think we're aware of some of the concerns, capacity specific there, just because of district programming. Small group spaces for RTI, he had shared some stories about how they're even meeting in the hallway, and Cornerstone and Meridian meeting with kids in the hallway as well. STEM came up. That was one comment from that principal that mentioned that it went from something that we wanted to now it's something that we need when we look at STEM opportunities at the elementary level. Limited space for future growth. They're pretty much maxed out at Eastview. If they were going to add 1 more classroom, something's going to have to be sacrificed, some type of program or inconvenience. And then number and function of student restrooms. Restrooms were a common theme at most of the schools. Everton, some different concerns, the conference room. I kind of walked us through some of the challenges with that and where the conference room is basically in the principal's office, which is right there in that main area. Additional student and staff restrooms, I think we were able to, we actually went in those bathrooms to kind of see how they're living in those spaces. So, and then small group instructional spaces for RTI, they're one of those buildings that's doing work with kids in the hallway. And then places to be repurposed, computer lab to just look for new additional programming that could be supported there beyond a computer lab. And then if you remember the art and music share space in the cafeteria, we were able to talk with that principal to talk about that changeover that happens. And I've actually spoken to the custodian there. before to learn about what they have to do. It's all hands on deck to get it switched over. But when you're in a school, you just make it work. You just do everything that you can, so they're gonna find a way to do it. And for them, they just think everyone does that. It's fine. Going into Grandview, designated conference room for parent-team meetings, so very similar situation to Everton. Media center to be a hub of learning, so that media center being revamped to have multi-purposes beyond just checking out books. Electrical work for lighting consistency, and I remember the first time I met that principal, we were playing the game of which light do you turn off because they weren't speaking to each other, the switches in the classroom. And then small group instructional spaces for RTI, and then STEM surfaced again from that level as well. Frazee, student and staff restrooms, RTI spaces and related services, STEM, and then event parking. In some areas that surfaced from the principal is just some underutilized spaces, exterior, like that courtyard where they could do some work there for children, and then safety fencing around the playground. I know I went through that kind of quickly, but I just wanted to make sure we refresh our memories from our time that we spent with them. And also, I think I first presented this back in September of 22, so it has been a while since we went over the overall considerations. Now, some of the new items, this is just, we updated the enrollment that you can see. I wanted to make sure that you had that in front of you. I'm sure you see it in multiple places, but wanted to have this here. What I will bring back, though, is that capacity, where we do it from a range of functional to operational. So it's like, what is that ideal number in each class, and then what is that high number of your range, and then be able to do a capacity learning at that level as well. But again, just want to get principal input, because I don't want to assume on some of the spaces that they have designated that that is an open classroom that could be used. So Randy was great doing his homework and looking at operational costs per year, and was able to get some averages for gas cost, electric cost, and then total cost. And then we were able to convert that into cost per square foot to operate Eastview, Everton, Fayette Central, Frazee, and Grandview. And what we did was we looked back at, to give you a cost comparable, a new building or a renovated building with new systems, 10 to 15% is that kind of operational savings compared to what your square footage is.
So how is it that Grandview is spending so much less on electricity?
I don't know if it's just a fluke of this year or something.
Are they all the same electric providers in all the schools?
Everton, I believe, is different, but the other four schools are the same. Why Grandview was lower, I dug into it.
Halls are dark. I mean, and that's a function of some of the lighting.
Yeah, it was a little darker, but I don't know.
It was the dark, you know, is this, the
Maybe
Grandview teachers
30,000
are better
cheaper
about
than-
turning off the lights when they leave the classroom.
Yeah.
Better insulation.
And I mean, going to the other side a little bit, I would tell you Fayette Central, this was still on propane. We converted to natural gas, so I would expect that to go down a little bit in the next year. It's not gonna cut it in half or anything, but I would anticipate slightly less on.
The one classroom that we walked into, it had an energy saving feature on the lights. It was a kindergarten classroom.
Grandview
Do they have
does.
that throughout, or is
At
that?
Grandview, the lights go out if there's no one in there.
I mean,
Oh, that could.
Yeah.
that's a big help.
And
I mean,
actually,
and
it goes
that's
out
probably,
even
I'm
if
sure
you're
it's,
in there.
I'm sure it's not all of it.
I taught there.
I'm sure that's not all of it, but I mean,
Well, and
doesn't hurt.
is the electric cost at Fayette Central, is that the difference between Henry County REMC and Duke Energy?
But Fayette Central's on Duke.
That's
Duke.
Duke.
They're all Duke.
It's all, they're all Duke?
Everton's the only one that's not.
Wow, that's a surprise.
You got to think too, we're looking through when they were originally built and then when they were last updated, and there isn't consistency of when they last had an update, so you might find that some are more efficient than other fixtures.
And also, you did the cost per square foot, and I'm sure somewhere, up at the top is the square footage of each building. Okay.
Well, the far right column is the cost per square foot.
That's yeah, but I want to know the total square feet, so that's at the top,
That should be on the
that
previous slide.
previous slide, I can see that here, okay.
Yeah, I don't know, I think what I would say is, what we tend to do from an engineering analysis and an efficiency analysis is zero in on, well, you asked the one question. First of all, are they all on the same utility? Or is the rate different because one's REMC? Second, in your district, it is a little bit interesting to see one at $1, you know, the different dollar per square foot. So what, as we move forward, it'll feed some additional conversation about the why. Somebody mentioned the light levels, or it could be the efficiency of the pumps.
Chiller boilers.
Chillers and or boilers are big, you know, the bigger items are the bigger energy
Right,
pieces.
okay.
It could even be, you know, Darryl would know, like perhaps there was an operational initiative to say, let's not air condition at night, or shut, you know, it could just be those types of things too. This is just good data
Yeah.
to look at and just say, okay, how, because the other thing would be, remember, like, if a building's really important, like a particular location, that's gonna supersede the current energy consumption analysis, and then directive would be this building, but let's get it down to $1.10 or $1.50. So
Have they done energy audits, because I know Duke offers it for homeowners, that they will come in and do an energy audit of your house?
this is your energy audit.
Okay. But the ones that the homeowners get is, what are some specific areas that you can do to improve that? Like,
So you would connect this to the black boxes, half boxes, and empty boxes.
okay.
And that would,
But I think what I was trying to say, and I can say it better, is what comes first is like which buildings are most important. And then go to this energy audit type information and say, okay, given this building and these needs, let's try to reach this goal to reduce it. What I tend to do, just because I like to see the annual savings, say, okay, if I have a 70,000 square foot building and this tells me there might be 10 cents to grab, 70,000 times 10 cents is the number per year I can save. If I can reduce the cost by 10 cents.
Okay.
So that's how I tend to look at it. It's like, oh, that's not a bad number.
so related to this analysis, if you remember, we talked about the 5 elementary base option, and that would be all the items from mechanical, electrical, plumbing that were of need at each of the elementary schools. We went into detail last time, and I have this, we have to reference it, but the all 5 elementary base option with the improvement options that include like the learning environment. So it is adding some additional programming and like full refresh of those schools. And then the new option that you'll see today that we'll talk about is that 3-school option, and give you a visual of what it would look like and then a cost estimate. As we go backwards to go forwards, this was that black box analysis of the systems of the elementary school. So this was, black box meant it was full, it's below standards, it's beyond service life. So that's that creeping concern that's going to come up at some point. It's the thing that Darryl and his team are always trying to keep alive, and it's the things that Randy's planning for that he knows might happen, you know, sooner rather than later. The half box means it's functioning. The condition is fine. It's not current standard, but it's working. And then the clear box means that it is adequate, it's meeting needs, good condition. So it could be something that you invested in recently. So the task last time we were together is, if you were to just pull those black boxes and those most, you know, critical items that are beyond service life, and Skillman met with Mike and our engineering team to go a little bit deeper to define not just a black box, but what black box, what does that mean, where is it at, all those different items, so that they could get a better analysis on the cost estimating. That's what I'm going to turn it over to you guys next. There we go.
So the first thing I want to say as my first qualifier tonight is this is not an option that we're proposing. I want to be clear on that because this is more a matter of a risk assessment. If the board decides not to do anything, these are areas in which you may be forced to address in your buildings based on them failing, or you get to a point where you just have to replace them in order to have school in the building. And working with Gibraltar's engineers, we tried to identify those items and then identify the cost for those items. And probably the best example is the conversation we just finished, which is there's no new lighting in these scenarios. The lights still work, you still flip the switch, they still work. It's not very efficient, it may not be the quality of lighting that you want, but you can still walk in the building and probably for the near future, it's still gonna work. However, situations like pumps for boilers, or there's some serious concerns about electrical service, there's a lot of aged technology. We've tried to pull those out and identify the replacement costs of those limited items. There's no new finishes, for example, in any of this.
What does phasing cost refer to?
So one of the things that we used in developing these costs were, you have sort of the fixed cost of replacing something. Then there's also the cost of, for example, we may not be able to replace, we can't remove all the kids that go in there and just replace it all efficiently. So there's an inefficiency of working in an occupied building. And so our engineers, or our estimators they sort of overlay a factor for the fact that you're working in an occupied building. In other words, what it costs brand new costs a little bit more because you have to work around kids in the building. There's also some numbers baked into this that we didn't highlight, which is we're trying to tell you not what it is going to cost today, but what it will cost if you were to pull the trigger now in a year. So, so we're putting some contingencies in there because we know whatever decision you made, it would be in the future, not today. You bid it, you design it, you bid it. But I think the strong message is, if you go back to some previous conversations, we had talked about sort of the baseline being $30 million worth of work at the 5 buildings. That shows you the difference between optimizing and addressing everything and what, if you do nothing, you may be forced to spend. That's what we hoped we would give the board. Hopefully that was answering the question that was asked at the last board meeting.
But this does not include, so we saw those things in Shelbyville, those bulkheads, which held, I don't remember what, was that for what did the bulkheads contain in some of the classrooms? There was like a big,
That was HVAC, wasn't it?
they called them bulkheads, you guys call them bulkheads.
So bulkheads are normally in the ceiling.
Okay, is it for,
And so normally they contain, sometimes they're decorative, sometimes they're to identify entrances, sometimes they're to conceal ductwork and mechanical equipment above the ceiling. So, no, this would not, I don't want to call them cosmetic, but these are not, this was just to fix what's broken.
Okay.
Kind of a scenario, not to enhance it or.
Because I think in Shelbyville, there were like rooms that they had added electrical things, so they had like narrow,
True.
I don't know, cables that were coming down attached to a box, and you talked about if you redid that, those things would disappear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this isn't.
No.
Okay.
There's nothing in here that I would consider cosmetic.
Okay.
I think it's important to keep in mind too, Fayette Central is our biggest building, and it's about 18, it's 10,000 square feet more than 3 of the city schools, but then it's about 19,000 square feet bigger. So it's our biggest building and has our best space for the classrooms, but the water and sewers, we can't, that's gonna be something we're gonna have to tackle down the road. And that's not included in these figures at all.
No, that's a very good point. We did not include that.
I mean, we've got good space out there, but we're gonna have to spend money on that too down the road, because the well's not gonna keep up long term. And the sewer, Daryl,
There's
holes,
pinholes everywhere.
pinholes in the system running in, so just something for everyone to keep in mind.
So
Our
that-
biggest space will need
On
more.
that sewer line, that runs to a certain spot, I don't know where it runs to, all the way to town?
Yes, it comes from 30th Street, up 30th Street Hill.
And do other people attach onto it, or is it just the school?
They can, I don't know if they are, I can't tell you how many are, but I know there are a few.
And if they are attached, I mean, does the total cost of replacing that sewer line come to the schools? Or do homeowners that are on there also have to pay?
I think that would come to the city and the school, and it could be a grant they're looking at helping with that coming down the
Okay.
road in 2025, but
That's for
will
the
our
water,
well
though, I
hold
think.
up?
That's for the water.
Yes.
The
That's for
sewer
water.
is our, the
Sewer's
sewer's our run only,
Yeah.
right? The
Yes.
sewer, that's what you asked.
Yeah, that's what I said, sewer, sewer's just us, okay.
Is there a septic tank out there?
Yes.
And, because that's where we've got the sinkhole. Okay,
That's where we pick them up.
yeah. So we got city water.
Thank you.
No, we don't have city water.
We
out
don't.
there.
No, but
Yeah.
the people that live in Dunn Grayson, in that area, some of them have city water and some of them have wells. And it kind of depends on where they are.
I didn't know Dungarson had city water, that's interesting.
Some of it does, some of the areas do, but most of them have wells. Most of them, because there's, Bruce Price is,
You're talking about St. Jude behind Fayette
Yeah.
Central.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a community well there. I
Okay.
think they're all on a well
Okay.
there.
They are, Bruce is.
Yeah,
probably-
Bruce is in charge of that,
Yeah,
yes.
So it's not city water?
no.
No, it's just a community right there.
And that's what the city, we met with Brad Coulter a while back, and there is a grant that would be two or 3 years down the road. And the whole idea would be, are there enough customers out there
To pay for it.
to help with making it worth their while to help with the cost?
Well, out where I live, when we built our house almost 40 years ago now, we had a choice of tapping into, Daryl lives out there too, we had a choice of tapping into the city water up at our end of the block, or having a well septic, which my neighbors on Vine Street have. And it was gonna cost us a lot of money, but it was spread out over, it was spread out over 20 years that we paid for that as part of our homeowners assessment for 20 years to get the sewer, city sewer and city water to our house out in that neighborhood. And the idea was, it was there, but we did not, they were gonna put it there, but they couldn't afford it. So if we wanted to tap into it, then we could. Some people opted out of it. 2 houses down doesn't have it. They have a well and a septic tank, so.
Vicki,
I'm assuming
thank you
it's the
for
same kind of
holding this together. So you have annual operating costs, so you have an idea what it costs to operate each of the schools. And then you have some lurking costs, and I'm glad that you mentioned this. It's not a recommended option, but just so that you know what's lurking and what will be servicing in the next few years as an expense for each of these schools. So now I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly because you've seen this and you have it in front of you, but I just want to refresh your memory before we get to that 3-school option. We went through and we applied everything that was HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and architectural that needed to happen to each facility. And this was the base option. If you remember, just the light blue was a light renovation, like a refresh. You have orange was medium, and then red was heavy. So this is what we proposed at Eastview for just that base option. This was the base option at Everton. Base option at Fayette Central that would need to happen. Frazee, Grandview. And then we got to estimating where we were able to show you the estimated cost for if you were to just do the base option in each of these schools, getting you to an overall cost of $30 million. And then here's the spreadsheet. Again, you've seen it, we're just going to keep filling it out, but it's the 5-school base option, including the soft cost, to give you an idea if you were just doing what was presented in that option. Here's the anticipated cost of that.
And that does not include what you just told us about the operational costs.
Right. Right.
But this cost would do the new furnishings and things like that too, correct?
Yes, in this base option,
With this
it
base
was.
option.
Right. It
That
just
includes
was,
new lighting in the classroom.
right.
But it's not any of this. The minimal cost to meet standards. thing.
No, that's just a, yeah. It's not in that first number you provided.
No,
But
it-
9 million,
Yeah, yeah, that,
Their question was, is this column
include the 9 million.
include the previous numbers of the fixed wing?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it is included.
Oh, the 9 million is included in this?
yes.
Oh, okay.
So it's all
Okay.
black boxes, it's refreshing.
Thank you for asking.
Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
But this would be, the Shelbyville visit, Loper, this would be putting the classrooms in similar condition at this cost. We would remodel all the classrooms under this cost too, is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Same mentality of what you saw there.
Okay.
And
Plus
this
all
is
the
a-
mechanicals.
And this is a recommendation from the team, as opposed to the previous, which would just be Band-Aids. That's why I made a point of saying that 9 million is not necessarily what would be a recommended solution. This would be sort of the minimum recommendation, is the way I would put it.
And that, that would get you the energy efficient thing, so the occupancy sensor, that's what the sensor's called, when they
Right.
come in and out, so that 5 minutes after you leave, if it does sense motion, the lights shut off. It would have those things, we would build it up to code.
And finishes, refreshing finishes.
Includes restrooms, all those different factors as
The
well.
restrooms, the way we saw them at Loper, or that they're
Yes,
doing at
yes.
Loper?
Yes.
And this one, on this, whichever I just looked at, the summary of needs matrix that had the strip at the bottom, it says ductwork. So that would be an example where it would be hidden, right?
That's
That-
correct.
And so that would be that cosmetic,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
So it includes everything that we've discussed. What it does not include are those improvement options. So when we talk about a STEM space and talk about the added programming that came up in some of the surveys and principal input, that's what this next option is. So it's the 5 elementary base option and improvements, so it includes everything from base, all those black boxes that were shared earlier, and then it includes some additional scope items and learning environment improvements. We have the matrix, we have those identified, and then here's what it would look like applied. You can see there's a lot more red that's included when you add this base and improvement option. So not only are you addressing everything before, but you are adding to the main office to get the programming that they need in the main office. You're adding some space to these for increased capacity. You're adding STEM as an opportunity. So that's what that includes. Here's what you would see what it looks like at Everton. Some added to the office. We applied the exact same philosophy to each of the schools programming. There's Fayette Central, definitely a little bit more red, expanding that front office. And you can see what it looks like when it's applied to Frazee as well. And then finally Grandview. And then I'll get to the cost estimating document that was probably easiest for us to see. So you can see that this 5-school base and improvement option, where you guys did see this in May and we had the conversation, what that all-in number, which would be making all 5 schools like new 20-year, solution for a school that you don't have to circle back to.
Who's buying the Powerball ticket?
Right, and so in the last meeting that we had, the question surfaced, and I do remember from the community meeting too, and just the after conversations where a patron had asked, have you thought about having one large city school and what that would look like? And so just as we did the exercise in the very beginning to explore 2 brand new elementary schools, we wanted to explore what a 3-school option would look like if you had one large city school. This is just additional information from previous if we need to come back to it. It's where we showed you some examples of before and after of some schools that we have done some work on. And then now we're going to go into the 3-school option. Chose Frazee Elementary as the site that would be best for a few different reasons when we analyze this. One being central to the district, central to your service area, proximity to other district facilities, and then you have a rare opportunity there for that multiple entrances and exits. So you could bring in the buses in a different spot than you bring in the car riders from the staff. So some opportunity there, but there would definitely be some work that would have to happen. We have this identified. If you were going to have a large city school with an enrollment capacity of 900, you're looking at 6 sections per grade level, so 6 kindergarten classrooms, 6 first grade, all the way up to 6th grade. District programming opportunities, because if you were to, you would still need to have a place for life skills, you'll still need to have a place for the special programs, which we did here as well. Would include a new gym and cafeteria, media center, because you think about, if you're talking about 900 kids, you're going to have to make sure that those spaces are equipped for, you know, your increased enrollment. So this gives you a visual. Skillman was kind enough to do some estimating to give us an idea. So do you want to, Victor and Tim, do you mind explaining a little bit, since this is a new number that they've seen?
Absolutely. Well, you see, just to be clear, the Everton and the Fayette number was just repeated in the column from the left side there from the base improvement option. So the new number here is the Frazee Elementary, 32 million. Probably the simplest way to describe this is that you have a building that's a little over 44,000 square feet currently, and the proposed solution is increasing it to almost 109,000 square feet. I'm not surprised that that would actually be bigger than a new school solution, because what you find is when you try to expand an existing building, you're not as efficient as a new building. But nevertheless, of course, it's 900 students, so it's the other variable. But most of the money in this option is the new square footage, as you can anticipate. I think my quick math is somewhere around 38,000. Well, that's more than that. It's 44 from 108, so 64,000 new square feet. So that shows you the $32 million to add on and update that building. And then, of course, soft costs apply to all of those to get to that 66.
In this exercise, we chose Everton and Fayette Central as the schools that would be in 3 school, and we didn't want to leave them behind, so you wouldn't want to add all this programming to a new elementary and then leave Fayette Central where it is and not add a STEM or additional programming for them. So yes, there's sticker shock when you see the number of what this actually looks like, but in the spirit of what we've been doing for the last year, turning over every rock to make sure that we've explored every different way to find a solution.
So just looking at Frazee in this plan, you're looking at almost the equivalent of 2 Everton elementary buildings being added on to Frazee.
2 Evertons.
Well, Everton's about 35,000 square feet, so it's 60
a little
lot.
more. Yeah, 60.
So it's almost 2 Evertons added on to Frazee.
Wow.
It's a big building.
I have a question about the alleged access, because we have really good access off of 44, off of what is now, but you go to the back side of what is Frazee right now, and that access is not kind at all, because it's accessible from 5th Street, and if you've ever gone up 5th Street Hill, you can't get a bus up there. And then you would have to go over to 8th Street and cut across, which is a residential area which could not effectively handle that kind of traffic because it's in an older part of the city, unlike Grandview and Eastview, which have the wider streets. So I think when you said that it's accessible, yeah, it is, but logistically, from the 44 side, I think it's great. But if you're looking at the back side of that building and how we access it now, I don't know how that could be changed, because that's an old residential neighborhood that's built that way, and it's just would not be necessarily designed to handle that amount of traffic.
And if you were to tell us that this was an option worth exploring, we would go to,
all three.
Okay, no, I'm just kind of asking why they would have chosen this as an option worth looking at to begin with, because of those. To me, it seems like there's an awful.
Well, I will piggyback off of that, because
So you're adding on, and I'm not critiquing you, but you're adding on to Frazee. Would you have not looked at Grandview building a new building inside of the track there? As a new building there?
So when we walked Grandview, and this is really an exercise to give you a price estimate, to give you an idea, if you're gonna do one large school, you're looking at probably this similar, range to be applied there. But I do remember when we were walking out to the car to find out if that field is an option for expansion for Grandview, because I do agree, you have multiple streets there to play off of. But if you were to tell us that 32 million, you're comfortable with looking at a large city school, we would do this same exercise for the other two schools if you feel that way.
My guess is when you turn that, you're probably gonna turn that building, so that field there is going to be more of a entrance and exit coming out, and the entrance and exit will be like for a bus that's there now.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have plenty of it, because you're gonna turn that building, I'm sure, and will not need so much back there still. It'll all come off 44, there'll be two different entrances and exits coming out.
Okay, so you're saying that the buses would go where they go now, but on either I'm not
The
good.
west would probably be the front of the school where the cars and stuff and teachers.
Okay, where the playground is
Yeah,
now.
kind of, would be my guess.
So you would turn it, because to access Frazee from the back, what is the back now, would Country Club Road, Fifth Street Hill, that's just an older part of the city that would not easily, it doesn't have the wider streets, like around Eastview, around Grandview, which has the more major area.
I like the Grandview too, because it's on the north side of the city. It's also Grand Avenue where they did all the new plumbing, new sewers, new water lines, everything's new up through there.
The infrastructure is much better up
If
there.
you guys would, we will proceed as directed. If you say, we like what this looks like, we'd like to see what it would look like at the other schools. I can tell you the range is probably gonna be about 28 million to probably 34 million, to apply the same concept to Grandview. And that might end up being a better option. Just wanna make sure before we explore that is something.
So the 20,
Okay, well,
just to make
if
sure
we're-
that the number of, so you'd be in the realm of 55 to, so that number is gonna, so 32 million, I think it was like, oh, if I move to this other site, maybe it's 28 million, maybe it's 34 million. So the range, this is a good exercise to say, this is the range. What it's really saying is, well, initially, and it may be the best functional solution for the district to have 3 schools, operation and all those other reasons. But from a construction standpoint, this is your ballpark, 28 to 34 million, and absolutely, please let us examine each of the 3 sites to turn over which one's the best, but don't expect us to bring you back this news to say, hey, good news, it's only 20 million. It's still high 20s.
It's gonna be in this range, no matter what, but just looking logistically, like what Jeremy's saying, is that what's going to be the most cost-effective and the most utilitarian as far as our usage is concerned.
And then if you like was to build, would it be about the same cost if you was to build a new school like inside of the track area? Because that would be new construction, you wouldn't be interrupting anything per se.
That's sort of the intuitive point Victor was making, is like, there's a lot of new square footage, 64,000 square feet of new construction, put that anywhere, like to your point. So but it's still 64,000 square feet.
So what Jeremy's saying though, if I think I'm hearing you right, what would a 900 student school be per square footage wise approximately?
About 100.
About 100. So we're building a new school from scratch will probably be 50. Not that much. When you're adding 40,000 more square feet.
Yeah, it's 100,000 square foot new school.
I'm speculating, like, if you build one inside of because we have the track, it's fenced in over there, it's a quarter-mile track. Football field's inside of it, right? If you build a new school there, potentially a 2-story, you're not interrupting anything else, you're just building it, because it's enclosed. All the schools are so funny. Because I know there's costs
or higher when you're having to work around a building that's occupied. And I don't know if that compares to, like in Frazee, to do something like that, you're still messing with the occupied building, even though you're adding on.
Yeah. So, football field's about 45,000 square feet, right? Roughly. 45 to 50,000 square feet.
Well, you have
Yeah.
other,
So
you
say
have
you do 2
other,
stories, we get you 100,000 square feet, but you need all the parking and everything around it.
well,
We have the rest of the site for that.
we
Yeah,
have,
it's kind
we
of
have the
puzzling.
rest of,
I guess I'm not, but are you thinking pretty seriously about building the 90?
I'm just asking because
I'd like to know where you're gonna come up with that money.
we all pulled out our wallets, we kick in.
Well, and that is a good point, because no matter what, it's still over the,
Right.
what's expected
Like,
for the bonds.
I mean, I'm just looking first at, like, even the 5-school base option with the soft cost is more than what we have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless you're talking about a referendum, which if, I mean.
Or closing one of those 5 schools.
Well, even closing to build,
You'd be closed to go to 3-school operation.
well, even the 3-school option was
66.
67, 66.
Jim, wasn't there a number like
Oh, 66.
37,000 or
Yeah.
No, but that's with
students?
Adding on to Frazee.
that's with adding on to
adding on
Frazee.
to Frazee.
And I was curious what the cost would be when
That's
you didn't add on to
66.
Frazee. You
But I don't.
And if
But we don't have that either.
If we went to a 3-school option, would these be the 3 schools?
Square foot, 750.
Right,
Probably
but
not.
regardless,
I would
the point is still that adding on that type of square footage is gonna get you to that number regardless.
Yes.
It's still over what we have. So, I mean, unless Randy has some great ideas on how to get another 30 million,
That's
Powerball
probably
tickets are
a
still
good
available.
segue.
yeah, this is a good segue, because I mean, I love all this discussion, we haven't even talked about the pool.
It is. And, we're prepared to talk about the pool, because I do feel like that's how we close almost every meeting, because we don't
I know, the
want to
poor
lose sight
pool.
that that was something that we did originally to assess. But,
Never gonna get anywhere.
going back to our original objectives and outcomes, obviously brought some new learning tonight, that we have some new information to digest, but I also, timing of projects, that cycle of doing project hearings in '23, and bringing what we've done in the last year to a landing. We're getting close to that timeline, but we also don't want you to feel pressure like you gotta make this decision now because of a project hearing timeline. So that's where the segue is to Randy to give a finance update about some options.
Okay, before we do that, so, I know we're talking about the timing. What if, I mean, I don't know what's gonna be available to us 5 years from now. I don't remember what all might fall off, what we might have an option to utilize, where we could do some phases that might, I'm not talking about the adding on to any building, I'm just talking about one.
And when we look at our costs, so right now we have the middle school project, which we refinanced and saved considerable dollars. That keeps on getting through 26.
Yeah.
It'll be gone.
27, the field house is done. We put that on a short payment schedule. At that point, there's no other debt right now, and we want to keep our debt level, right?
Right.
So if we did use the full scope of this, approximately $30 million, a little less than 30 now, that would carry out for 19, is it 19 years?
19 years, 7 months, so.
And that would be our only debt we could incur for the next 19 years. We wouldn't be able to take on any more debt without raising our tax rate, which Baker and Tilly's looking at ideas with that too. So this would lock us in for the next almost 20 years, adding no more debt.
But that's just for the 30 million.
Yes.
But you said, but when the field house comes off.
No, that's figuring that in, that this will take the place of that, our payments will, of the field house and the middle school.
The middle school.
2027.
2027, this would be our only debt payment for 15 more years, 16 more years,
So,
under our capacity now.
which we don't know what our capacity will be, because our capacity could change based on other fluctuations.
It could change based on our, what our assessed valuation. We had a pretty historic year, 22, 23, because it went up 94 million for the county. We could see rates go the other way if the market crashes. And then we don't know what the city's gonna do with another TIF district, which that could impact us too. So, I mean, am I missing anything there? I mean, those are the big factors we just don't know at this point.
So we have.
Tell us some more bad news.
Well, we just have to be
Well,
very, very, very conscious of this, because the middle school debt's been around for almost 25 years. And it's tied up a lot of things.
so let me ask this though, and I keep flipping back because I'm trying to find some certain costs. So, out of our operations fund, obviously, we were able to set aside money to be used for a baseball field, okay? So, I don't know about some of the soft costs, I mean, they exceed that. But is there anything of this list that could be postponed that falls in a category of something we could pull out of operations? I mean, it would be a small amount, obviously, it's not gonna be $10 million, but do we only get enough to be able to set aside what our needs are? You know, we had that money for the baseball field, so how did we get that, and when can we again, if we use that for a baseball field, have that kind of money to again apply to some of this?
We could, I mean, if you look at your fund report, when you look at the rainy day fund and the operations fund, we have almost $12 million sitting there. And from that, when Randy did the budget, it was approved so many dollars of that, but remember the operations fund is funded by our local taxes, right? Typically pays for your buildings,
Right.
your buses, things like that. Education fund is different, obviously.
Right.
So we're healthy in those balances. We don't want to spend that down and only have $1 million because we couldn't handle contingency. So that's part of that budget process that we go through. We'll be going through here in a couple of months. We're looking at that. So we earmarked, like paving, we earmarked $150,000 and we're using $90,000 to do the high school project. So, I mean, is there anything?
I was just trying to see if there was other monies that
Yeah,
would
we
come
can
along.
take some money out of our capital or out of our operations fund to pay for some, but.
I'm going to go beyond a little bit.
Okay.
And I was hesitant to I didn't put this into a presentation because some of this is still shifting around. But I will, and Scott kind of opened the door there, I'll go a little bit to the fund report. My short monthly report sounds the same as it does most months. We're in good shape, things are going along as we anticipate. Some of the balances go up a little, but some go down a little. From month to month, we're in good solid shape there. If you go to the very, very end, bottom of the fund report, this isn't all built into the budget because you can't do it, but if you look at it, we have a cash, or not cash, but we have a balance of over $25 million total. That cash balance, I would tell you, is very healthy. We could, with intention, eat into that and lower that towards projects. And I say with intention, what I really don't want to get into is the education fund, which is our day-to-day yearly budget, paying teachers, paying instructional assistants, all of those kind of things, keeping that there. But if we're doing a one-time project, that we know we're gonna do this project and on December the 31st, we're gonna write a check for X number of dollars and it's done, finished behind us, and we know that number is gonna drop from 25 million to whatever, we could do projects such as that and go into cash balance, knowing that we are eating into money that's built up over lots and lots of years.
What about when the ESSER money runs out? What are we gonna have to fund, and is that gonna come out of operations? I mean, I know we have some teachers, some SLC teachers, right, that are.
SLC's gonna be a big one.
Yeah.
Right, so And I'm sure you've all discussed this,
We
so.
discussed it this morning.
We discussed it this morning, but we haven't, we don't know where all that's going to be.
Right, because I think, I mean, that's an educational program that I want to see continue, and so, I mean, unless, yeah.
And it will, I mean, but, you know, that's why we're planning ahead, and this, because of the board's commitment and support of what we've done, there's lots of millions of dollars of savings that we have in our costs over the years, because we have been fiscally responsible, and we're healthier than most districts, but, you know, and I hear Mark in my ear, you've said it several times over the years, is right now we're in good shape, but we don't know what's coming. I mean, the state keeps adding all these unfunded mandates to us. This year it's textbooks. That's $250,000 that's coming out of our money from the state that we never had to worry about. So what's next, and what if we go into a recession? And so those are the what ifs, you know, that we don't ever want. We have to continually look at ways, and that's, we can weather the storm for a while with not doing anything to any of these buildings. But the next board or the next superintendent or 10 years down the road or whoever, somebody's gonna be facing it. And that's why we're doing what we're doing.
We're trying to be proactive.
We have to be
And waiting,
proactive.
not waiting for our grandkids to take care of the problem.
And that's what we've tried to do over the years.
Here's what I would like to see happen. I'm going to put pressure, Scott, on you and Randy, and I don't know what the other board members think. I would like for you guys to make a recommendation as to what we should do with the number of elementary schools that we have, or with moving sixth graders to the middle school. How much money would that save us? Bring that recommendation to us and let us decide.
I have another question. Well, that, I don't want to, if others want to discuss what Mark said.
I just don't know how we
Take away.
move forward without having
A plan.
the plan as far as number of schools.
I
It
agree.
seems to me like everything we do, we have to go back to that. And nobody's going back to that.
Because that'll help solidify this planning further.
I think it would help solidify every decision we're gonna make in the next 2 or 3
So,
years.
so you're, wait a second, I want to make sure I'm clear. So are you saying if we closed a couple of schools, what kind of savings would that be that would then affect what we have the monies to do? So you're wanting admin to
Yeah,
look
and I
at all
don't think
that,
it's-
give us that figure?
And not just the savings in money, what are our needs? I'm not even, in a sense, thinking money. What, do we need 5 elementary schools now with our current enrollment that declines every year? I would like to hear what Scott, who has much more knowledge about this, and Randy than I have, I would like to get a recommendation and work on that recommendation.
And to add to what Mark's saying, I mean, we do have room to move those sixth graders to the middle school, right? We've talked about that before. There's, I mean, just to be able to handle it, there's room. So then what does that turn that, I mean, if we did have to build a, you know, onto a single, do we need as much space? Once we pull all of them out, do we need 900 students then? You know what I mean? So there's, I mean, I think the sixth grade into middle school is a great option, but I think that frees up then, I mean, we already have space for those kids. I think that frees up some of what we have to do for the rest of elementary when those students are now not in there.
So moving, just, I can talk, I don't want to belabor this, but we can certainly work on it. It's more of, big elephant is that, what do we do with all our buildings? We repurposed Maplewood, it's been a great solution. You know, if we close buildings, just keep in mind
The charter.
the charter school piece where that could open the door. That's what happened in Rush County with Mays, is it Mays Academy?
Charter schools in general, though, don't have a good track record.
No, they don't, but that doesn't mean that people don't try to do that.
Right.
And it has to be offered first, right? We couldn't sell that building to a developer who wanted to make senior housing out of it or
But,
something. for one.
let me ask this. If we chose school A, that we're gonna close down, and we're doing add-ons or updates in other school, can we use some of the resources from A into those schools? Some of these schools got brand new boilers and things like that,
There's some of that we've talked about could be,
because I mean, that's a lot of money,
Yeah.
and there's no reason they can't be retrofitted, in my opinion, to be utilized.
Well, and then the question would be, again, dovetailing off of Mark's comment. So, and Ryan, so if you moved sixth graders to middle school, can whatever remaining schools that might be open accommodate all this influx without adding on? Because that's where the cost is. When we add on, you're talking millions to add on. So could those remaining buildings handle the influx of K through 5
And also,
without additions?
we have logistical issues with transportation that because of the county having 217 square miles, that from Bentonville to south of Everton is a huge distance. What does that do to our transportation? Do we have kids kindergartners on buses from 6:30 in the morning till 8:30 and then expect them to go to school all day and learn something? And this is just, there's so many moving pieces to this, and so I kind of understand where everybody's coming. There are just no simple answers, and that's what makes this thing. But I really like what Mark suggested. But once we get that suggestion, then part of that conversation has to be logistics, because we have to get the kids to the schools. And that's a huge problem here in Fayette County, simply because we are so spread out. You know, when I was driving to Cincinnati today, I went down 27th. Talawanda High School is not near anybody. Talawanda Junior High is really not near anybody. They're both off 27. They have to transport everybody.
Except that they just eliminated some of that in Oxford. They eliminated some busing.
Yeah, well,
I mean, otherwise kids get
Cincinnati, they only bus kids in Cincinnati city schools and most of the township schools around. They only bus K through 6. They don't offer bus service all for 7 through 12.
So if these guys come up, I mean, then this alters what Gibraltar can, I mean.
Or we just do the next iteration.
Right.
Of analysis.
So I don't sleep, I think about these things, so if you want to hear real quick, because I know we've gone over a little what we were planning, maybe, I don't know. We move about 220 kids out of 6th grade into middle school. If we keep the model, the 3 schools with one big city school, that would reduce our building capacity need probably by about 150 kids. So we would probably do a 750 student city elementary, which would be smaller square footage, right? That saves some money. This is just, don't read into this anything more. We're not planning this, it's just things that keep
We're
away.
brainstorming.
Everton is gonna always be an issue, because right now, we go across the county, 44, sorry, and then up to above the north of the triangle. So we're encompassing almost half the district to get 260 kids at Everton. We would probably have to take Village Creek and Hanson Meadows and bus those kids out to Everton. Fayette Central, we already moved down to 30th Street and picked up Office Park and all that area. That helped keep their numbers where they're at. So with the remaining kids, we wouldn't need a 900 student school, we'd need about 750 kids. We'd probably have to eliminate teaming at the middle school for space, and then have a grade on pretty much on each floor in basic, and then use the auxiliary space, we'd have more on the first floor, obviously. So I think we could fit all the kids, because middle school, the new norm's gonna be 500 or less. We're probably gonna get to the point where 450 is a 7th and 8th grade building here in the next few years. So yeah, we would, but we're still always gonna face that struggle, I think, with Everton especially, of keeping, because the land being bought out there is not being bought by families with schools, kids going to our schools. And so that's gonna be our challenge, so we will have to do more busing from the city out to Everton.
And I guess we would need to know, and again, I know that we've stated many times in these meetings, we are just talking, we do not have any plan.
No.
But if you did.
Wish we did have a plan.
If we had a plan, it wouldn't have taken so long.
We're trying to get to one.
Yeah, but if you did
You're right.
close some schools, school A or B, does the reduction, what's the reduction of cost? Again, if you can move anything, well, that would be moving, well, I don't know, move anything from the old building. Does that, again, I'm looking at that $30 million figure. Can we still get there? You know, does building closure result in, would it still mean we'd have to add on to a building?
The one big city one we would, but not
We
the
don't
others.
know.
And you also have to
Then
remember,
you would reduce those costs essentially from other buildings.
And you'd also reduce your annual costs.
Operating.
right,
That would be really important.
Demographically, if you moved, and I live in out by Darrell, and if we set the boundary for Everton at Alpine Road, okay?
maybe.
Yeah, okay, maybe, okay, at Alpine Road, just, that would give you all of Village Creek, all the parts. I would be interested to see if we did something like that, how many students that would add to Everton. Because when we did the thing with 30th Street, as far as going up to Fayette Central, we had some really, really good information.
And Terry's working on another.
We just rolled
Population
over
density
stuff
map.
in Power School to next school year. Terry, we just talked about this morning. Probably in the next month, hopefully, we can have some of those
To show where the
figures and
kids
maps.
are.
To show where the kids are, because that's our problem in the far northern reaches of the county and the far southern reaches of the county. We have kids in such isolated areas. But if we have a chunk of kids that we could move, probably not happily, but would save us some money and utilize space effectively, then, because if you're on a school bus, to get from my house to Everton would probably take, on a bus, probably 40 minutes if you had to go round and round, which you probably would. But we're gonna have to do that, anyway, and which is gonna be the least painful.
Yes, I mean, I don't think what Mark's saying and asking for the recommendation from you guys, I don't think that he's saying any particular schools. I mean, it may be Everton, a large, a central school and Fayette Central. It may not. I mean, whatever you think would be the best. And I think the logistics and the transportation is a big part of that.
And you keep in mind, let's say we go to a 3-school option, we're gonna pull about 50 kids more out of that school's number by moving 6th graders. So Everton now is down to 200 kids before we redistrict again. Just so, that's important. We're gonna have to find about 100 kids to shift out to Everton.
I still don't see even doing this. I mean, I like that idea of getting those things.
And then we have.
Still gonna have to add on. I still don't see that number shrinking tremendously.
And
But I
when
think
6th
we're-
graders work at the middle school, I mean,
Yeah.
what corporation is that went to 6th graders that
And
moved
then they
and they're
moved them
moving
back.
back because it was not
Oh, really?
working?
Well,
Yeah, we talked about it. I don't
and
know
you'll
where it
have an
was, but
argument
that
with
would
me
be-
about getting rid of teaming,
That would be
because
awful.
if we want to stop what's going on, and I love the idea of having the high-risk 7th graders come in. One of the reasons why we don't have as many kids that came in as high risk from 6th grade when we get them through to 8th grade is because we do have teaming. Because we provide that school within a school and the extra support and the extra teachers. And I realize it costs more money, but it's like pay me now or pay me later. Because teaming provides that support, that school within a school for every kid. And we pulled out 10, and that's fine. But what we do is we take away that thing from everybody else. Because teaming works with that age group of kids.
I
Really
don't
well.
think we're even at that point.
No,
yet,
we're not.
Looking at that, and I also think, I mean, yeah, I think it's great to get this information. I still think, yeah, let's get that information, but I know those numbers are gonna be a tremendous change, that's
But
unfortunate.
I think we're at a pivoting point here. It's kind of hard to ask Gibraltar to do anything more when we don't know the direction we want to go. They give us some good numbers to estimate off of, but we're kind of a stalemate here until we decide which path we want to go, and then we can ask them to detail it further.
Let me give just a little bit more information, because we're getting into a tax time crunch. Let me just throw out, one of the things that we talked about previous meeting was what does happen if we increase taxes. We've tried to keep it flat at that 30-cent range all the way through. What does an extra 5 cents or what does an extra 10 cents do to both the budget numbers as well as what does an extra 10 cent do? Does an extra 10 cents increase due to the average homeowner? Looking at both sides of it. Again, we're looking at big broad numbers. I'm just going to go the 10 cent because you can kind of take it off. If we increase taxes by 10 cents, that would bring us in, I'm going to call it usable money because there's soft costs and some of that, but that's going to bring in right about $36 million.
10 cents per.
10 cents per 100. So, and now making it more real to everybody that pays taxes around the table, the median price, from their stats, the median price, so half the houses are above, half are below, not the average, but the median price of a home in Fayette County right now is $88,400. That's the market value. That would mean, though, the 10 cents increase would increase that person $26.28 a year. For I'll just take some random ones. A person that has a $200,000 house, market value, it would increase their taxes by just under $100 a year. A person with a $300,000 house, it would increase their taxes $164 a year. So a 10-cent increase, that gives you at least an idea of what type of an increase we're looking at. Going to the additional, Lori, I'm going to look at you as an expert. Do you want the per acre price or do you want a 100-acre price on farmland?
Do the per acre.
Well, I will tell you, a per acre cost of 1 acre of ag land would be $1.92 more per year on 10 cents. So obviously, 100 acres of this, 1,000 acres. So what's that?
We have a lot of that in this county.
Yep.
Yeah.
It adds up.
Right. So that's some ideas of the 10 cent increase above where we currently are. We are also to the point, though, that for looking at next year to keep that tax rate flat, we're going to need to do some type of a bond for next year, either do a 1 or a 2 year bond on what we want to do. And we have to pick out projects, what we want to do. Ballpark, again, keeping the tax rate flat, we're looking at about $1 million a year. We could do an additional GO bond for next year, about $1 million, or we could do an additional GO bond for 2 years for $2 million. The one thing I would tell you is the soft costs, attorney fees, financial, and all of that stuff is about the same whether you do 1 million or 2 million. So if you do 2 million, then you get more to spend. 1 million is going to take the costs out this time and the next time.
So you're saying we could do that even though the 30 million would be our debt, our only debt. We pay off those GO bonds every year.
This would be like we did this past year.
Right.
We did the $1 million
And
bond.
those are quick payoffs.
And we pay it off in a year. We could do that.
Or we could do 2 million and pay off in 2 years.
Taking this down the road another year, because we're getting into the timing of this. Remember, we have to have the hearings and the folks that come in from Baker Tilly, and that takes time, and we're gonna have to get started on that here in the next month or two.
Right.
So,
My question way earlier was that kind of stuff available for not the soft costs like the fees, but furniture or carpeting or something of that nature that we could wait to do. We could wait to do furniture on any of these buildings. And if they fell with, under $1 million and we did 2 buildings one year, and then we did 2 buildings another year and replaced. I mean, that's where I was asking earlier, is there any money we can squeeze out yearly to push a few costs
Yes.
down the road?
Some of that's gonna be built in, meaning some of that's already in the operations fund. We have some of that and we do it already, so.
Yeah.
So what you're
that's
saying, what if we could take $1 million out of our operations fund to do some of those other soft type costs and not impact this? That would just
Right,
take
and
several years.
it would take several years. You wouldn't do it all at once.
And the other reality is, when we say that if we do this 30 million-ish project, that sets us for 20 years, somewhere 5 or 6 years from now, the board would be able to do a small project, only because right now our assessed valuation in the county's a little over $800 million. Well, that's what the tax rate's fixed on, so if our assessed valuation goes to 900 million, if it goes to $1 billion, if it
Right.
continues to climb, then our tax rates are going to go lower, but we're gonna have more that, so you could do a small project 5 years from now, but it's not gonna be anything near this type of a scope.
Yeah.
Randy, if, it's my understanding, if we want a 10-cent increase, which the figures that you gave is not a huge impact on most taxpayers, okay? That has to come by way of a referendum, correct?
No, that is not correct.
Ah,
That's where I'd probably want Jane Herndon with Ice Miller to come in and make the presentation. There are different cutoff levels. If we go a project over $5 million,
okay.
then that, I can't think of the exact terminology, maybe you guys deal with it more, but essentially, if we go over $5 million, because that's based on our current budgets and all of our features.
Okay.
If we go over $5 million, a person could go out and solicit signatures and say, I want a referendum. It does not require us to go to a referendum. They can go out and solicit signatures, and if they get over a certain number of signatures, then that could drive it to a referendum. Here's the thing, if they go to, if somebody would force a referendum, and say we wanted to do it'd actually be a little more than this, but say we wanted to do a 15-cent increase, and somebody forced it to a referendum at that point, and the referendum passed, then all of that money for that referendum comes off of the tax caps. So right now where the tax caps are affecting all of this, people, they would see a larger increase than what just this referendum would do. It's a lot higher threshold that requires a referendum. These are the type of monies that we're talking about here would not require a referendum. It could result in one, but it would not require one.
Okay.
We had an instance where the county auditor came to the project hearing and said, if you choose to do this referendum route and stuff, it's gonna be worse for you, tax.
Yeah.
So it actually, the county auditor kind of stood up, and which I had never seen a county auditor stand up publicly at a project hearing, so I was pretty interested. And that was the reason, she wanted everybody to know, this is bad, it's counterintuitive, but the point the auditor is making is this is bad to do this.
Read about other school districts who did not pass their referendums and the ensuing chaos that created by not having that money. And some of them, particularly in the donut around Indianapolis, some of them have passed them and some of them haven't. And the ones that haven't, the consequences are pretty dire.
So we're happy to, recommendation, we can go to work on some basic, okay, if it's 36 million or what, Randy would tell us, stop here with whatever funding sources you're using. Also, if you have different funding sources, it's not difficult for Skillman and Gibraltar to say you spend this from the GEO bond, you do this from the big bond, you do this from rainy day. It's not hard for us to compartmentalize what segments. And then I like the idea of if the recommendation is to reduce the number of schools, then yes, we want to look at, well, here's a savings. If you could take $1 million worth of equipment and items from this school to this school, that's $1 million savings. It's a big lift from a lot of different perspectives, but we can help you once we hear, what does this look like? We put it together for you, just like we've been doing. I call it another iteration, or it's just another version, and we can do that for you.
And with there being a time crunch, I mean, if you guys come up with a recommendation, we don't have to wait until next month to talk about that.
Well, we'd have to have a special work session.
Right.
We'd have to have another meeting.
That's what I'm saying.
Be open or private work session?
It'd have to be
They're always open.
It would have to be open.
Why not? Why not have an open session?
Right,
I
of
don't
course,
know,
we
yeah.
want it to be an open
Right,
session.
That's what I'm saying, sir.
Yeah,
No
executive
problem with that.
sessions have a lot more rules about what.
We've been open about this whole process.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions for Gibraltar or Skillman? Okay, let's remember we're still in a meeting. On to public comments. So yeah, no more questions? Persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private, and I know with one person yet left in the audience, I don't believe we have to worry about it. Superintendent discussion group reports. The only thing I'll say under that is if you haven't let Cindy know yet about the state conference, she sent an email out. There's an early bird price, I think that's over Friday, or is it?
The 14th, you have to register by the 14th.
Yeah, so, I mean, we can, I'm sure register you later, if you find out later, you can
It's
go,
the
but.
25th and 26th of September, I believe.
And we already got some good invitations to you.
Oh,
Principal directors reports. All right. Thank you for waiting and your patience, Kelly.
July 18th and 19th, the CHS campus is going to be closed for an active shooter drill. Our safety entities, Mr. Liggett and Mr. Russell, have been collaborating with CPD, Connersville Fire, EMS, and EMA to do a practice drill within our walls. So we're going to close the campus off to the public to make sure it's a safe environment for their practice. And then July 27th is freshman family night at CHS at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Kelly. Terry's not here, okay. Director of Operations report.
I gave you mine for any questions, but I jumped ahead.
Assistant Superintendent report.
I'm good, thank you.
Superintendent report? Always. He's the one that said we were gonna be out of here by 7, like I said.
Yeah, I know that.
Scott time.
Scott time.
Just wanted to make you aware, I met with our police chief and our sheriff a 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about our SRO presence. I just want to make you aware, we are exploring with secured funding to add some hours to Billy Waston, 5 more hours. He covers the 2 county elementaries, and then would like to add another SRO for the city elementaries and the preschool, which would be a 40-hour-a-week position. So I just want to make you aware, any other questions or concerns, I'd like to get posted. I already have a lead on one person who has SRO experience in another district who is from here, which could be a positive, already has a training. So I just wanted to make you aware of that we are trying to increase even more this year.
You're stealing the one from Hagerstown?
I can't say anything about that. But, so anyway, I just want to make you aware and the public to know we are continuing to add to that. So unless there's any concerns, I think we'd like to get it posted this week and try to have somebody on the place. And that person would take care of the city elementaries and the preschool.
No concerns.
Yeah,
Okay,
go for it.
Good. Let's get her posted then. We'll see. I think we'll get some good interest, I hope.
And for the good of the cause, does anybody have anything they want to share today?
Just been a rough week a rough 3 weeks for law enforcement. Just keep me in your prayers.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. And here we are, Chris.
I make a motion to adjourn. It's fantastic.
And
I second that.
Oh, Ryan's the second. Okay, all those in favor signify.
I think, no, Jan,
Opposing,
More past
sign.
that,
George, I'm retired.